And we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the February 10th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting to order. I'm going to have to get used to 2022, but we've made it to 2022. And just a few housekeeping items before we get started into the agenda. First is Metro government encourages everyone to wear a mask. We appreciate that, and we do have masks if you'd like one. And so you can, this team is sitting right over here, and we have extra masks if y'all want one. Secondly, please silence your phones, and that way I just silence mine, and so we don't interrupt ourselves in the middle of the meeting. And then also, commissioners, on this new system, microphone system, don't press the speak button twice too fast, or it will blink, and then we have to reset it. So just kind of go slow, be patient, and we appreciate y'all doing that. And then also, during the meeting, we always try to be professional, where it's a professional meeting. We ask everybody to please do that, and we will do the same, and we appreciate everybody doing that. And then lastly, if you didn't know this, Monday is Valentine's Day. So, get all those, get a gift for all those deserving husbands, and it's a selfless plug. I'm just kidding. I'm really just joking, but I know I'm going to get my Valentine's, my wife and daughter Valentine's. So happy Valentine's Day to everybody on Monday. So that was out of order, I think. I'm sorry, commissioners. We'll get back onto the agenda. And so the first thing is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Ayes have it. And the agenda is adopted. The next thing is the approval of the January 13th, 2022 minutes. That was sent prior out, and so is the agenda. And is there a motion to adopt the minutes? There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And the minutes are adopted. Now we are on to item D, which is the recognition of the council members. And we do this as I see them come in. So appreciate Councilmember Gamble. You want to go first? Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you all. It's good to see you today. Thank you for your time and your service. I want to speak briefly about item 1A and 1B on your agenda, the Bordeaux Whites Creek Haynes Trinity Plan Amendment and the corresponding request, Hickory Highlands at Little Creek SP request. I fully support the staff recommendation to defer these two items indefinitely. We've had a couple of community meetings, and the planning staff has held a meeting to discuss this community plan amendment and corresponding SP, and there was opposition from the community to both, particularly pertaining to the use, the land use that this community plan amendment would allow industrial, and there was not a lot of support for that in the community. So for those reasons, I fully support the staff recommendation to defer indefinitely. Also, I'd like to mention that you may know that I have introduced a resolution in the council, Resolution 2022-1326, requesting that the planning staff review and update as needed the Nashville Next general plan for the city. Having attended many planning meetings and talking to residents in my district, have learned that there's been a lot of change that has happened in our city over the last 7 years since the plan was adopted in 2015, and in some instances, the community policy or the policy and sub-area policies don't match what the community would like to see. So the resolution was introduced on January 4th at the January 4th council meeting. Prior to that, at the planning meeting, we had discussions with planning staff. Director Kemp was there and came up with the wonderful idea that while the entire plan may not need to be updated. The plan includes a transportation plan, includes the infrastructure plan, in addition to the land use plan. Maybe not all of it needed to be reviewed, but perhaps there were areas around the county that the planning staff was familiar, that had significant growth. Some areas of town over the past 10 years have had over 50% growth. And then areas where the communities have changed could use a review and maybe an update to the plan. So in order to limit the scope of work, council members were asked to submit areas in their district that they feel may need a review. And the planning staff would then compile a list based on data from the census tract and other information from the community about contentious areas, and pull together a list of areas to limit the scope of the review. So with that report, we're expecting to have at our next council meeting coming up on the 15th. And at that time, we'll have more information in order to have a vote on it. But I'd just like to say the purpose for me to introduce this resolution, as I said, was in response to hearing from constituents in my area about how some area plans don't match what the community wants to see, and then hearing from other community members throughout the county and attending planning meetings here. So I hope that you all will support and understand, and it seems like the planning staff has a great plan to address this in a way that they can do it in the time frame that has been suggested, which is by June 30, 2023. So it allows about 15, 16 months to do the work. And it would involve, of course, the same process that the planning staff does now to review amendments. This is not an attempt to circumvent that process, but this is just an attempt to prioritize the need to review the plan, which is 7 years old and in many places out of date. So with that, I appreciate your time and thank you for today.
Thank you, Council Lady. And before you go, the council member Withers brought this up last meeting, and I want to take a moment while you're here just to say I appreciate you bringing that. I love the idea. I think it's due, and so I want to take a selfless plug to say, as you and the council member Withers are appropriators, to just point out that our staff a lot of times is a lot smaller than other cities our size. And so the one thing I appreciate you working with us, because I don't want staff to get overworked, because then, everybody's short on labor. We don't want to lose anybody. We don't want to overwork anyone. And so last time we did the general plan, we had to come up with a plan to figure out a staffing plan. And so we figured that out during that time, and I know we can figure this out. You bring up some great points, but I do want to say, always keep that in the back of your mind and our mind. We'll work together to try to figure this out. And I know the director and I talk about this often, so appreciate you doing that. Appreciate your understanding, and as an appropriator, it's important to consider the staffing levels when we figure future plans.
Thank you. I totally agree and appreciate that, and definitely appreciate the work that the planning staff has done, particularly just coming off of our redistricting plan, which I know was a lot of work. And so definitely don't want to overwork our staff. They're doing a wonderful job, and appreciate you saying that.
Well, and thank you for your help on redistricting as well. You were a big part of it, so thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Withers, as well, listening to us on that. All right, so next is Councilman Syracuse. I saw Councilman Syracuse. There he is. Come on up, my friend.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, Councilman, good to see everybody. I appreciate it. I have item 35 on your agenda, which is a PUD removal. Very supportive of that. Going to be a great development that doesn't impact any existing neighborhoods, and it's really perfect as part of the Century City area for some density and growth. But I'm actually not here this evening to speak about that. I'm here before you to voice my support for the historic overlay, hopefully about to be placed upon Exit Inn. But I am compelled to come before you to ensure that there is a strong awareness amongst leaders in this city that the situation with Exit In is an example of how we are losing a critical aspect of our culture and increasingly becoming a victim of our own success in the city. While I'm fully supportive of this overlay to protect this building, it comes at the cost of losing a locally owned, independent venue to an increasing trend of corporatization of music venues. This historic overlay will only cover part of the property and will no doubt result in development of the remainder to further hyper-gentrify the rock block that will fundamentally change the character of this area from serving and cultivating local songwriter and musician careers to becoming yet another tourist-focused destination. Our independent music venues are critical elements of this overall music ecosystem that we have here in Nashville. In addition to this precarious situation of losing Exit In as we know it, we know that the three venues on Cannery Row are leaving, and in a couple of years, other venues, their leases are coming up, and they are being surrounded by development pressure. That's why I filed Resolution RS 2021-927, which requested our Metro Planning Department, Office of Arts and Culture, Historic Commission, the CVC, and the Nashville Chamber to partner together to inventory all of our music venues in Nashville to better inform us about how we preserve, sustain, and support these venues for decades to come. I'm very thankful for Director Kemp's leadership in supporting this effort. I'll just end by saying that we absolutely cannot take for granted anymore that we are a global capital of music in this world. We have cities around us that are nibbling at our heels to take pieces of what we have built for well over half a century. Protecting buildings is but one aspect of this effort, but there is so much work to do to heal the damage that has already been done to ensure the city remains a beacon of hope and opportunity for the working creative class, not just corporatized tourist destinations. The working creative class are the bedrock of what drives the music industry in creating copyrighted works that ultimately is what generates the billions of dollars of economic impact for the city. We've got to do a better job, not just to protect the physical structures, but to ensure that we protect that culture that ultimately drives our success as Music City. I appreciate your time and your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. All right. I don't think I saw any other council members. Nope. I don't see any other council members. So we'll move on to item E, which is items for deferral withdrawal. Lisa?
The following items are for deferral or withdrawal. On page 3A, on page 3 of your agenda, item 1A, 2020 CP 003002. Staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. The associated case 1B, 2020 SP 022001. Staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. On page 4 of your agenda, item 2A, 2021 CP 008003. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item 2B, 2021 SP 044001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item 3A, 2021 CP 014001. Staff recommendation is to withdraw. Item 3B, 2021 SP 092001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 4, 2021 SP 057001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 5, 2021 SP 063001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 6, 2021 SP 068001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 7, 2021 SP 072001. Staff recommendation is to defer indefinitely. Item number 8, 2021 SP 081001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the March 10th meeting. Item number 9, 2021 SP 091001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the March 10th meeting. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 10, 2021 SP 095001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 11, 2022 SP 003001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 12, 2022 SP 007001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 13, 2021Z 077PR 001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. Item number 14, 2022Z 010PR 001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 15, 2021 DTC 027001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the March 10th meeting. Item number 16, 2021S 227001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the March 24th meeting. On page 9 of your agenda, item number 24A, 2021 SP 083001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. And I would like to note that Commissioner Henley is recusing himself from that item. On page 10, the associated case 24B, 2003 P015005. Staff recommendation is to defer to the February 24th meeting. And I would like to note that Commissioner Henley is recusing himself from that item. On page 11, item number 31, 2022Z011PR001. Staff recommendation is to defer to the March 10th meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. And so commissioners and Lisa, make sure I go through this list right, but the items for deferral withdrawal are the following. Items 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 24A, 24B, and 31. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, commissioners, you've heard the items for deferral withdrawal. Is there a motion?
Chairman, one clarifying question. Item
Yes.
7, I think I heard it was deferred indefinitely, not deferred to February 24th.
Which item?
Item 7.
Item 7? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. After publication of the agenda, we heard from the council member and the applicant, and they have some more work to do on that project, and so they have requested an indefinite deferral.
Thank you. So with that, I make a motion to accept deferral and withdrawal items.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a proper motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are deferred to withdrawal. Next is item F, which is the consent agenda.
As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. I will now go through and read the item number and the case number for the items that are on tentative consent, and I will ask if there is anyone in the audience in opposition. If so, please note by raising your hand, and if there are people in opposition, then the item will be presented. The following items, let me know if there's anyone here in opposition to these items. Item number 17, 2021Z 107PR 001, a rezoning on Antioch Pike. Is there anyone here in opposition? We will present that item. Item 18A, 2019 CP 008003, North Nashville Community Plan Amendment, and the associated case 18B, 2021 SP 059001, 9th and Buchanan. Is there anyone here in opposition to those items? Item 19A, 2021 CP 007004, West Nashville Community Plan Amendment, and 19B, 2022 SP 009001, 1111 63rd Avenue North. Is there anyone here in opposition to those items?
Sorry, I didn't hear number 23.
I haven't gotten there yet. Item number 20, 2021 SP 089001, 1705 Hayes Street. Is there anyone here in opposition to item 20? Item number 21A, 2022 SP 008001, 3887 Central Pike SP, and the associated PUD cancellation 674P003. Is there anyone here in opposition to 21A and B? Item 22, 2021 SP 077001, Young's Development. Is there anyone here in opposition to 22? 23, 2021 SP 078001, Alta Rochelle. Is there anyone here in opposition? We will present that item. Item 25, 2022 SP 002001, Brentwood Chase. Is there anyone in opposition to item 25? Item 26, 2022 SP 005001, 19th and Church. Is there anyone in opposition to 26? Item 27, 2021 HL 004001, Historic Landmark on Elliston Place. Is there anyone in opposition to item 27? We will hear item 28, just noting that. Item 29, 2021 Z 127 PR 001, a rezoning on Elm Hill Pike. Is there anyone in opposition to 29? 30, 2022 Z 007 PR 001, a rezoning on Kingston Street. Is there anyone in opposition to 30? 32, 2022 Z 012 PR 001, a rezoning on Ashton Avenue. Is there anyone in opposition to item 32? 33, 2022 Z 017 PR 001, a rezoning on County Hospital Road. Is there anyone in opposition to 33? 34, 2022 Z 018 PR 001, a rezoning on Fern Avenue. Is there anyone in opposition to 34? 35, 177 74P 007, Century City PUD cancellation. Is there anyone in opposition to item 35? 36, 2005 UD 006048, 31st and Long UDO modification. Is there anyone in opposition to item 36? We will hear item 37. 38, 2021 S 238001, Bowles property. Is there anyone in opposition to 38? Okay, we will hear that case. 39, 2022 S 032001, prior property concept plan. Is there anyone in opposition to 39? Okay, Chair, I'm now going to go through and read the captions on those and the recommendations. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. The following items are on the consent agenda. Item number 18A on page 7 of your agenda, 2019 CP 008003, North Nashville Community Plan Amendment. It's a request to amend the plan by changing from T4 Neighborhood Maintenance to T4 Mixed Use Corridor. Staff recommendation is to approve. On page 8, the associated case 18B, 2021 SP 059001, 9th and Buchanan. It's a request to rezone from CS and RS5 to SP for property located on 9th Avenue and Buchanan Street. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 19A, 2021 CP 007004, West Nashville Community Plan Amendment. It's a request to amend the plan by changing from District Industrial to T4 Urban Mixed Use Neighborhood Policy for various properties located along the Cumberland River. Staff recommendation is to approve the T4 Mixed Use Policy for the District Industrial portion of the study area along with the supplemental policy. Also, staff recommends approval of changing one state-owned property from District Industrial to Civic Policy for consistency. The associated case 19B, 2022 SP 009001, 1111 63rd Avenue North. It's a request to rezone from IR to SP for property located along 63rd Avenue North to permit a mixed-use development. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 20, 2021 SP 089001, 1705 Hayes Street. It's a request to rezone from MUIA to SP for property located on Hayes Street to permit a maximum of 295 multifamily residential units or 345 hotel units and 2,500 square feet of restaurant. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. On page 9 of your agenda, item number 21A, 2022 SP 008001, 3887 Central Pike SP. It's a request to rezone from CS to SP for property located on Central Pike to permit up to 112 multifamily residential units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item 20B, 21B, 674P003, the Priest Lake PUD amendment. PUD cancellation. It's a request to cancel a portion of a planned unit development for property located on Central Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 22, 2021 SP 077001, Young's Development. It's a request to rezone from RM2 to SP for property located at 820 Young's Lane to permit 22 multifamily units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. On page 10 of your agenda, item number 25, 2022 SP 002001, Brentwood Chase. It's a request to rezone from R40 to SP for property located on Valley View Road to permit 12 multifamily units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 26, 2022 SP 005001, 19th and Church. It's a request to rezone from CS and MUI A to SP for property located on Church Street to permit a mixed-use development. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions, disapprove without all conditions. Item number 27, 2021 HL 004001. It's a request to apply a historic landmark overlay for a portion of property located on Elliston Place. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 29 on page 11 of your agenda, 2021 Z127PR 001. It's a request to rezone from IWD to MULA for property located on Elm Hill Pike. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 30, 2022 Z007PR 001. It's a request to rezone from CS to R6 for property located on Kingston Street. Staff recommendation is to disapprove R6 and recommend approval of R6A. Item number 32, 2022 Z012PR 001. It's a request to rezone from RS10 to R10 for property located on Ashton Avenue. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item 33, 2022 Z017PR 001. It's a request to rezone from RS10 to R10 for property located on County Hospital Road. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 34, a request to rezone from RS5 to R6 for property located on Fern Avenue. Staff recommendation is to approve. And on page 12 of your agenda, item number 35, 17774P007, Century City PUD cancellation. It's a request to cancel a portion of a PUD for property located on Ermac Drive. Staff recommendation is to approve. Item number 36, 2005 UD 006048. It's a request for final site plan approval for properties located on Long Boulevard to permit 5 residential units. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. And item number 39, 2022 S032001, Louis W. Pryor Property Concept Plan. It's a request for concept plan approval to create 4 lots on property located on Tulip Grove Road. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions and including exception to the compatibility requirements based on the lots being consistent with the larger area for general compatibility. And under other business, item number 43, to accept the director's report.
Thank you, Lisa. And so, Lisa and commissioners, make sure we get these right, and I'll read these slow. And these will be items approved on the consent agenda. Those items include 18A, 18B, 19A, 19B, 20, 21A, 21B, 22, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 39, and 43. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, Commissioners, you've heard the items to be approved on the consent agenda. We'll need a motion. Is there a motion? Move approval. There's a proper motion, and is there a second? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the consent agenda is adopted. And so, Lisa, I think that leaves the following items to be heard. Items 17, 23, 28, 37, and 38. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, that's correct. So let's give about 30 seconds for everybody to leave quickly, and then we'll start it back up. And if everybody could quickly move out of the room, because we still got a lot of business to conduct. So thank you very much. All right. So I appreciate everybody coming down, and I believe we were going to start on item number 17. Logan, is that you? All right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Logan Elliott with the Planning Department. I'll be presenting item 17 on tonight's agenda. The request is to rezone from RS 7.5 to R8, and staff's recommendation is to approve. The application includes 2 parcels comprising approximately half of an acre located on the southern side of Antioch Pike and adjacent to the Wright Middle School property. This portion of Antioch Pike is classified as a collector avenue in the major and collector street plan, and the site is currently vacant and is surrounded by other vacant parcels with single-family and two-family land uses across the street and an institutional use adjacent to it. The policy for this area is suburban neighborhood maintenance and is intended to maintain the general character of a developed suburban residential neighborhood. Neighborhood maintenance areas will experience some change over time, primarily when buildings are expanded or replaced, and when this occurs, efforts should be made to retain the existing character of the neighborhood, and the civic institution policy adjacent recognizes the middle school. Staff finds the proposed zoning district to be consistent with the intent of the neighborhood maintenance policy to infill vacant land with a broader mix of housing. The area has a pattern of single family with some duplexes mixed in, and this proposal would permit a similar pattern. The proposed zoning would permit an incremental increase in density to the neighborhood, and the vacant RS zone parcels on either side of this subject site would help transition this incremental increase in density from the remainder of Antioch Pike. And that completes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And we'll open this item for public hearing. And is the applicant in the room? Come on up. Welcome. Thank you. As Sorry, everybody. That's everybody. Good Lord. Can't. All right, we have to be very careful. I'm very sorry. Bad chairman. Okay. Here we go. Welcome. And as the applicant, you have 10 minutes, and you can save 2 of the minutes of the 10 for rebuttal. Welcome.
And we wish to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your service to the community and to each member of the board for taking the time. To the Executive Director, Mrs. Kemp, thank you for you and your staff and all the work that everybody puts in on small to moderate-sized projects like this, but so many others that have a lot to do with not only a great Nashville today, but the great Nashville that we all envision for tomorrow. Special thanks also to tonight's technical support, Mr. Lehman. We appreciate you capably jumping in at the 11th hour there for us. The case that we're presenting to you this evening, Mr. Chairman, is one that is relatively straightforward. Fortunately, we've had a great working relationship with Mr. Elliott, who's been able to make this as simple as it sounds. We want to take 2 of the 4 lots that we wish to develop single-family housing on and turn them into 2-family housing. Therefore, the increase in density from RS 7.5 to R8 zoning would be necessitated to pull that off. As you may or may not recall, originally my clients brought this forward as a proposed SP seeking 8 residential units across the 4 lots. The feedback from the neighbors was that that was just too much. They understood that there would be something built there, but that 8 was far too many in their minds. So with that in hand, the group reconvened, decided to come up with a new plan that reduced that then proposed density of 8 down to 6, use a straight zoning rather than SP and just go into the R8 so that we could transition back down to single family as is now by right on the 2 outer lots out of the 4. This is a good area. This is developed residential area. These lots have remained undeveloped for a very long time, but these are established homeowners and established homes next door to a good school. Fortunately, with 4 lots at one time being proposed for development, that means a nice chunk of frontage being dedicated to new, up-to-standard metro sidewalks in accordance with the 2017 and 2019 ordinances that came in with regard to new sidewalks. And I think often of Councilman Withers and former Council Member Johnson. They watch their neighborhoods go through so much of this piecemeal change. It must be relief in some ways to see 4 contiguous residential lots that will get nice infrastructure improvements, primarily, but not only, with sidewalks in this sort of a project. We're enthusiastic to have had the support from Councilmember Welsh, who has recognized that this is a nice way to add very sensitive and smart density in an area where there are primarily single-family houses now, but duplexes as well, including the property across the street at 202, which has been identified as duplex use for many years now. This is light, this is smart, this is sensible, and we think this will be a high-quality product, which is all my clients have been building across Davidson County for a number of years now. We're also thrilled to have the support of the planning staff, who recognized that this fit in neatly with the policy, with the sub-area, and really just in terms of a sensible alteration of the zoning code rather than a comprehensive overhaul. Very respectfully and humbly, we would request the recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission tonight. Naturally, we're eager to provide any answers to any questions that you may have that I can answer. And because the clients are with me tonight, if there are more technical or design-oriented questions, we're in a position to have them answer those questions for you as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. We'll have save 2 minutes for your rebuttal. Anyone wishing to speak in support? And so before I get into this, so just so everybody knows that we have the applicant goes first, anyone wishing to speak in support. Then we do anyone wishing to speak in opposition. There's a rebuttal, then the council member, and then we go into discussion. So that's how we always do these. Each speaker gets 2 minutes, and then you'll need to state your name and address. So anyone wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up. Everybody get 2 minutes, and if you could line up, that would be great, and state your name and your address, and welcome.
Thank you. My name is James Talley, and I live directly across the street from this development. That was a wonderful presentation that was just made by the attorney for the developers, thanking you all for your wonderful help. I would like to seek your wonderful help too. This is an old established neighborhood. The housing stock there was developed in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. It's a single-family neighborhood. That's the reason the zoning was RS. We feel like we have no objections to them building 4 beautiful single-family houses on each one of these lots. But we don't feel it's in keeping with the character of the neighborhood to build one house behind another. We're not Los Angeles yet. There are many young families that are moving into this neighborhood. They walk their children, they walk their dogs, they like yards to play in, places for their pets. This proposal goes through with the footprint of the houses, the footprint of the driveways and turnarounds. These lots will be down to about 5,800 square feet. There's no way to have a single-family character with these lots. We feel like the Planning Commission should support the people in the neighborhood, not a developer that's coming in from Brentwood or somewhere else to build something that's not in keeping with the neighborhood, simply to make more profit. If they can't make a profit building 4 single-family houses, then they need to rethink what they paid for the lots, or what they might pay for the lots under an option.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you for hearing me out. My name is Chris Skinker. I live at 208 Antioch Pike, and I have a view of those lots on a daily basis. Mr. Talley so eloquently explained everything that I think he addressed most of the concerns of the people in my neighborhood. When we moved into this area 20 years ago, it struggled. It had a lot of problems. Today, because of these young families who are buying these single family starter homes, our neighborhood has turned around. When I moved here, you didn't see families walking on the street. There was drug activity in the alley behind my house. That has changed tremendously. When you introduce even this many or this few rental properties next to a school, next to a middle school with very vulnerable, impressionable children, you are creating a problem. It only takes one bad player to harm a child from that school. And as a volunteer, my husband has volunteered at Wright. We want to see those kids protected, and we want to protect our neighborhood. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll consider our concerns. Those homes need to remain single-family homes available for purchase. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Anshu Gerhardt, and I live in Creve Hall. However, I own the rental unit at 202 Antioch Pike, And I did have some drug stings on my property. And they do have a point about some of the shady stuff that has gone on. But I bought the property in 2016, and I've worked very hard to bring it up to the standard of most of the single-family dwellings in the neighborhood. What I have, seen in this neighborhood since I bought it is that there is a very large lack of affordable housing in that neighborhood now that it's changing. Like its neighboring neighborhood, Woodbine, a lot of the residents are being pushed out. I believe that the new housing, the 6 units, even the 4, are going to be at a price level that is way higher than what a lot of the people in this working class neighborhood can afford. They are also right that there is a lot of traffic on this road from pedestrians. There's also a lot of traffic from vehicles. There's drag racing. And in Nashville, it's a problem. It's a problem on Nolensville. It's a problem on Antioch Pike. It's a problem on Berrywood and Creve Hall. And there are accidents on the road. There's high speed. There are walkers from Wright Middle School every day. There are walkers from Glencliff High School to the 52 bus on Nolensville every day, and to then the homes that they live in. There are trash cans and recycling cans all over. A duplex, like I have, will have 4 cars in it. And mine is a small duplex, 2 750 square foot units, with very little property for the people to park, turn around, and I have an alley access. It will put more vehicles directly into Antioch Pike, unlike the new development right to the west of Wright, which uses an alley. It'll also have trash cans the height of Wright Middle School students. You can't see them. People hit the curb and run up on it all the time. It's just not right for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
My name is Judy Beard. I live at 3216 Avenue, which is right across from where they're planning on building. I've lived there 39 years. I'm Nashville, born and bred. I grew up within a couple of miles of where I live. Went to the local high school. There's so much traffic on Antioch Pike right now that between 4 and 5 o'clock, when I go out Avenel, I have to turn right. I cannot turn left. So if I go down to the Kroger store, I have to go right and go way out of my way to go down to get out because you can't get out of the street. There's so much traffic. This is a single family district. That's the way it's always been when I was growing up. There's a few duplexes around. But if we change this zoning, that's going to open it up to more and more and more. We can't handle it. This is a single family residential area, and that's the way we want to keep it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Make sure we get everybody. All right, seeing no one else, 2-minute rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, when we were last here at the Planning Commission, which is in the January meeting, we had received good recommendation from staff. You need to go through and make sure you do a neighborhood meeting because there had not been a formal one, although much to his credit, my client, Mr. Roberts, had gone door to door in a number of instances and chatted with so many of the neighbors to get their input. But it wasn't a formal neighborhood meeting. So we took that good advice and deferred so that we could do that meeting. Fortunately, Councilmember Welsh organized that for us. Unfortunately, due to the effects of the Omicron variant, we were doing that online on Saturday morning 3 weeks ago when counsel for the appellants was also enjoying Omicron at home. But nevertheless, I was able to participate, and we were pleased to have the input and questions raised by the limited participation that we had in that meeting. We did want the staff to know, though, and the commission, more importantly, to know we've attempted the formal outreach, the informal outreach. Not everybody will like the changes that we are proposing here, but we do think we've brought forth a smart project, a conservative project that will yield good outcomes for an already good neighborhood for many years to come. Thank you again for your consideration this evening, and we renew our request that you approve our proposed zoning change.
Thank you, sir. And I don't see the council member, so seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Haynes, you want to go first?
Since I missed the January meeting, I'm going to let my fellow commissioners speak, and then I'll go last.
Commissioner Haynes? Commissioner Sims.
Well, I'll take that as a
I'm
compliment.
looking right at Commissioner Haynes.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Commissioner Sims.
I want to thank the attorney for speaking so respectfully of this neighborhood. I mean, this is hard for all of us in this city. We're living with density. I do remember the meeting. I do remember the SP, and I'm so happy to have something really stay within the zoning. I think it is sensible. I think it's a great alternative to what could be. Every neighborhood in this city is facing this density issue, and I wish it weren't. Well, at some level, I'm glad our city's growing, but I wish there were an easier way for neighborhoods to figure this out together, and I so thank the 4 people that spoke. I'm always blown away that you will come and sit for a long time to get 2 minutes to get our attention, and I'm grateful for that. However, I do think this is a good plan. I think it's got to happen in all parts of the city. The urban core can't take it all. We are inundated. So I'm for this, and I like what the staff has put forth in this one prior to the February one.
Thank you, Commissioner Sims. Commissioner Henley?
Echo my fellow commissioner here a bit. Again, just always appreciate the community coming in and taking the time out of their days to make sure we get their insight directly. It's very important for myself as a commissioner. I think my fellow commissioners respect that as well and appreciate it. I'll say I've been in a similar situation of having, several lots under a contract and working through a process and being an advocate for affordable housing, and then having a community push back and having less density requested. And then actually, making that concession and then projects turning into better projects, I think, are more suited for the character of the community. I think this is an example of that. I'm very familiar with the community. I travel up and down Antioch Pike quite a bit. I believe that there are duplexes and other non-single family homes that are immediately, maybe even within this frame that we're looking at now, that have some relationship to what you all were bringing up during the comments. And I would agree with my fellow commissioner again. I think, putting single family housing next to the lots that are already built, I think, is also a consideration for the neighbors. And, incremental development in the urban infill model that's happened, where we have a lot of things that are definitely bigger than what's around them, is something I think creates a lot of angst with neighbors. But to me, something like this that's much more moderate and much more in the same context of a community seems to be much more appropriate, and I too am in favor of this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilman?
Appreciate the community coming out last time as well as at this meeting. I haven't had a lot of discussion with Councilmember Welsh on this one in particular, but I do know that Councilmember Welsh speaks very consistently about the need for affordable housing. She's a big advocate for that on the council. Sometimes that means that we have to subsidize it or find funding for truly affordable housing. But I think that she also acknowledges that one of the solutions to trying to keep up with the demand is more supply. And that's what we have here. This is an area, I think Commissioner Sims kind of spoke to, urban neighborhoods sometimes feeling like a lot kind of gets squeezed in where there used to be one house. We hear a lot of that. There used to be one house, now there's 2 or more. This is an area where there haven't been houses in a long time. I actually think this is a perfect location to have a little bit more density. Antioch Pike is, I believe staff notate, a collector avenue. It's designated for traffic, higher traffic. Placing a little bit more density next to a school can actually support that school. I think sometimes our schools, they need more families and students that can potentially go to those schools, and having that right next to a school where you have a lot of open space around the school is a better location sometimes for a little bit more density than further back in a neighborhood or back up to other people's houses and things like that. So I think the community here can absorb it really well in this really unique opportunity where we have a series of contiguous vacant lots to add a little bit more density. I can see a degree of concern about design for houses. I believe before there was an SP, you can regulate design through an SP, but that is an expensive process, and sometimes you get a better product for that. But the trade-off for that is even more, a little bit more density often. So it seems like this is a good compromise, I think, where the community wanted a little bit less density. You get a little bit less design control, perhaps, but it looks like it's an area where there's not alley. I know one of the commenters spoke to garbage. There's not alley access here, so all of the folks do have to get their garbage service from the street anyway, so that's not introducing something new to the street because there already is a lack of an alley there. So that's pretty typical for that portion of the street. So I think this is a good compromise. I think it's a good location for a modest increase in density in an area that is definitely growing and definitely needs more supply. And I am inclined to support the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councilman. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the community for voicing the concern. I hear you. I totally understand where you're coming from. And especially, living in the neighborhood surrounded by single family and, 30 years. So change, T3 suburban neighborhood maintenance, people would expect it will stay kind of similar. But I think T3 neighborhood maintenance does not fit, that does not fit because we do have so many larger area of T3 suburban neighborhood maintenance area. So each neighborhood and each location is uniquely different. So some neighborhood may be okay to have gentle density, and especially considering proximity to the school. So for that sense, having a little bit density and then transition to single home kind of makes sense. I think a staff analysis really hit that point. So personally, I would love to see, since they have 4 lots, so it would have been great to have like a really SP and then really transition to single home neighborhood. But at the same time, with a commitment from the development team, kind of transitioning to single family, kind of adding the density in the middle. That's the background. Now it makes sense. So as much as I do sympathize of the neighborhood, I think in this specific location, this gentle density makes sense. So since I'm the last one to speak.
Well, we still have Commissioner Haynes.
Oh, sorry.
So, thank you, Commissioner.
Let him speak.
Commissioner Haynes.
In listening to my fellow commissioners since I missed the January meeting, I happen to agree with everything they've said and staff's analysis, so I will move approval of staff's recommendation.
It's a proper motion. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Henley. It's a proper motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it's adopted. Item 17 is adopted. So now we are on to item 23, which is Amelia. All right, we're pulling it up, everybody. I got to be real careful on the button pushing. I apologize to everybody. All right, Amelia, are you ready?
I believe so. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I am Amelia Lewis, and I will be presenting item 23 tonight, 2021 SP-078. The request is to permit a multifamily development. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. And before I go on, I did give a memo to all the commissioners. So if you could, hopefully you took a look at that, but if not, I will cover that information in here as well. So the existing zoning on the site is R6. The proposed zoning is SP. The properties to the east and south are primarily zoned R6 and have been developed with residential units. To the north, the properties are zoned IWD and SP and have been developed with a mix of non-residential and multifamily uses. To the west, the properties are zoned CS and residential multifamily and have been also developed with non-residential uses and multifamily uses. The subject site is a 4.5 acre parcel shaded on the screen in gray. The site has frontage along 2 streets. So South Street is located there to the north, 12th Avenue South is located to the west, and Southside Court stubs into the property right here with a cul-de-sac. There are 2 public alleys to the east and to the south of the site as well. So the proposed development consists of 1 structure with 355 units, office space, amenity areas, and leasing space. The western portion of the building at the intersection here. So this is kind of the aerial of the building if you were to, I guess, look from above. So here at the intersection of South Street and 12th Avenue South, the building is proposed to be 5 stories. On the first level there, on the ground floor at the intersection of the building, is the proposed office space associated with the development. As we move east on the site, the building transitions down to 4 stories and 3 stories given the slope across the site. And we'll look at some elevations so you can understand how that works. The 4th level includes additional building stepbacks along the eastern and southeastern property line. So that would be over on the right side of the screen and down at the bottom right-hand corner as well. So to break up the building facade along the public streets, we have a series of courtyards located along South Street and along Southside Court. There's also a vehicular entrance, which is located along South Street at this kind of U-shaped portion of the building, which is the primary vehicular access into the structured garage parking, which is this kind of gray box that's wrapped by the building on all sides. There is an additional vehicular entrance located off of Southside Court, where we see vehicular entrance gated. I tried to identify that. And so this secondary entrance is really intended for trash delivery, move-in services, but would be gated as to not direct daily residential traffic into this dead-end street. Additional vehicular spaces for rideshare are located up along South Street, as well as inside this courtyard here to try and kind of take some of that traffic off the street and provide a safe pedestrian access thoroughly around the site. And we have some renderings to show. So this is the intersection of the building at 12th Avenue South and South Street. So the corner of the building right there. The ground floor, again, would be that commercial area with prominent entrances to really activate the corner there. You can see the series of step backs as well as courtyards to try and kind of break up that facade. And this is the frontage along South Street. So here we start to see kind of the existing residential development that's on the far side of the screen. as well as the proposed development. Along this facade of the building, we start to see primary entrances along the ground floor to try and kind of reflect the 1 and 2 single-family character of the surrounding neighborhood as well. So here, again, we see that 4 stories up along the edge with the step back that transitions to the 5 stories at the corner of the building. This is the view from Southside Court. So really looking at that internal street, that's the dead end there. And we see a reduced building height to 3 stories there. And then as we move back forward towards the corner is where a lot of the bulk and massing is. So looking at the policy, it's in a pretty unique kind of situation in regards to the policy on the site as well as the surrounding policies. So the policy at the corner of the site is in that urban mixed-use corridor, and then further on the eastern portion of the site, in the purple that's not striped, is the urban neighborhood evolving. So really with the higher intensity policy at the mixed-use corridor is really where we want to see the more intense portions of the building. And then we use the neighborhood evolving policy to really step down into this neighborhood maintenance area along Southside Court and along South Street. It is an interesting maintenance area as those parcels have largely redeveloped with larger 2-family uses as opposed to some of the other maintenance areas that we would really see as with smaller single-family homes. But those entrances that were placed on the ground floor along the eastern and southern property lines were really intended to kind of create that pedestrian feel that the single-family and 2-family homes have along the street, as well as seeing a clear reduction in height moving from the corner of the building into the neighborhood. So the proposed plan also meets several other kind of shared goals of both policies, including increasing the residential density at this intersection, improving pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular connectivity, orienting buildings and units to public streets and common areas, as well as reduced building setbacks, limiting surface parking, and really screening that structured parking from view. Given the consistency with policy, staff recommends approval with conditions and disapproval without all conditions.
Thank you, Amelia. Appreciate that. And we'll go ahead and open this item for public hearing. Is the applicant in the room? Come on up, and you'll have 10 minutes to speak, and you can save 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like.
Thank you, Chairman. Doug Sloan. I live at 6354 Torrington Road in Nashville. Thank you all for being here tonight and for taking this matter up. Amelia, do you mind going back to the policy slide that you had? Thank you. And I appreciate Amelia's presentation. It is a unique spot. You do have split zoning or split policy on this lot. You have the NE, which is a little further east into the neighborhood, but still within that same block, it changes to T4 MU. The other thing that is unique here is that you have both a corridor and an arterial that meet here at this intersection. So both of these roads have a policy that calls for higher density as well. Currently, WeGo has 4 different bus lines that run through this intersection. They go to 21st and West End, they go to Lipscomb, they go to Hillsborough High School. I'm trying to think of where the other one goes, 100 Oaks. So there's a wide variety of access to mass transit at this location. Within the NE policy, it calls for greater height in an NE policy area where you're within a quarter mile of a transit stop or where transit's planned. Obviously, it's a little bit more than just planned here. There's quite a bit of it. But we have still asked in this plan to step down where the NE policy is. We worked with the neighbors, talked with the neighbors quite a bit. And one of the things that we heard was as this development met the housing that exists there today, that it would step down to meet that height. As Amelia pointed out, most of this area has already gone through rebuilding. Most of these homes over here that were single-family, single-story homes are now taller duplexes. I think most of the people that we've heard from that have had issues with this building are in the newer developments, and we've tried to make sure that where we meet those new homes, we meet them at their height. We also took the time to, here recently, work on the plan and push the building back to try and meet the setbacks as well. And talking with the councilman and with the planning department, we tried to add, and we have added, some commercial activity at the corner. What's planned is for a shared office space at the corner, and we've put doors at the street to make sure that it's real clear that that's for the community to use as well. Amelia, also, if you could go back to the overhead plan shot that shows, yes, that. I want to reemphasize something that Amelia's already pointed out, and that is that where you see it marked as vehicular entrance gated, that is just for trash pickup, and that's for move in, move out. Of course, it would be another exit to use if there were a problem with the exit on South Street, but South Street will be the entrance for most of the traffic. And we've worked with NDOT to make that the case. I want to go ahead now and turn it over to Andrew Steffens. He's the head of the development group.
Thank you, Doug. Like Doug said, Andrew Steffens. I'm at 929 Gale Lane. I actually want to further clarify something about the where it says in red, vehicular entrance gated. So that'll be trash, and then a little bit to the east or the right, service and move in, emergency access only. So that the residents, that gate will be with bollards or a gate, will not have access. The residents cannot come and go out of that gate unless there is some kind of a fire or an emergency. So it's just emergency access only, and then move in, move out, and trash back there. So what the goal is to not put traffic onto Southside Court, daily traffic. So anyway, good evening. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Planning Commission, for taking the time to study this. My name's Andrew Steffens, like I said. I live in District 17. I've been a local developer in Nashville for about a decade now. I drive by this site every day, a couple times a day, either down 12th or down south. And I've been calling on and working with the Rochelle Center leadership for probably the better part of 5 years on the future development and the future development of this site and the future of their business and where they will relocate. They're a great nonprofit with a great mission that provides services and affordable housing for adults with special needs. So their relocation, a successful relocation, is really imperative to continuing their mission. For the past 9 months, my team has worked very diligently with the Southside New Hope Neighborhood Association, Metro Planning, and Councilman Sledge to come up with a development plan that works for everyone. Through numerous in-person and Zoom meetings, we have received feedback and reacted with care and respect. We've reduced density, we've decreased the building's height, increased setbacks, and included community amenities such as sidewalks and bicycle stations. Furthermore, we're committed to making the neighborhood a safer place for pedestrians, and we've committed to the Neighborhood Association to fund traffic calming measures like speed bumps, stop signs, lighting, and crosswalks. In other words, my team, we're thoughtful and we're intentional local developers. We listen, we pause, and then we go back to the drawing board and we react as best we can. We've not rushed through our community engagement. And while I'm positive that we can't make every single neighbor happy, I don't think that there's a single neighbor that we've interfaced with who would say that we haven't been a thoughtful partner in the planning and inevitable development of this site. We'll continue to work in such a manner, and we appreciate you guys' support to move forward with the development of this campus. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll save 2 minutes for rebuttal. Seeing anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support, come on up and line up, and then state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. The timer is right there. You can see it right over there is the timer. So thank you.
Members of the Planning Commission, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Debbie Chadwick. I live at 839 Brent View Drive. I'm also the current president of the Rochelle Center, located at 1020 Southside Court. Having served in that capacity for 12 years, I have seen many changes in our service delivery as well as our neighborhood. For more than 50 years, the Rochelle Center has provided unparalleled support for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our community. We are a state-recognized person-centered organization, a member of the Office of Disability Policy Employment First initiative to ensure all people who want to work can. This support includes providing affordable housing as part of service delivery, not as an afterthought, but as a direct policy. As best practice shows, people we support are best served by living and working in the community. We have reached a point in our history where we no longer need our large campus in Edge Hill. Our service delivery has transitioned into community as part of federal initiatives by CMS 7 years ago. That is why we have been in negotiations with Wood Partner to sell our property at 1020 Southside Court. The potential proceeds from this sale would allow the Rochelle Center to accomplish 2 important goals that further the mission and vision of our founder, W.R. Rochelle. First and foremost, it will allow us to greatly expand the number of affordable housing opportunities we can provide for persons in Rochelle Center service delivery. Second, we will be able to secure office space that better suits our needs. In addition to our campus, Rochelle Center owns 10 supported living homes across Nashville, with each house supporting 2 to 3 persons and staffed around the clock. Our hope is to use the proceeds from this sale to purchase additional houses over time for at least another 50 to 60 individuals that would support the Rochelle Center staying true to Mr. Rochelle's vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Come on up. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Jimmy Bradshaw. I am a board member on the Rochelle Board of Directors, been that on the board for going on 20 years. Current treasurer of the board. Just echo what Debbie said, the importance of this project to our future as an organization and our mission is significant. We've reached a crossroads in what we do due to change in federal policy, change in federal regulation. We do not have a need for and cannot use a 3 to 4 acre campus anymore. And we need to take the value in that property and use it to further our mission as we've been forced to adapt under federal regulation. It's a significant project for the future of our organization, and we appreciate the opportunity for you to hear us today and consider this, and we hope that you will support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you for hearing our hope for appeal that you will support this. I'm Kathy Byington, live at 110 Belgium Court in Hermitage. I am a member of the Board of Directors at Rochelle Center. I'm currently the Vice President-elect Vice President. I'm also mother and co-conservator of an individual who benefits from the affordable housing that Rochelle Center provides. And I think that has been an enormous benefit to my son. He has an opportunity to feel like he is actually living an independent life. He is in a situation where there are caregivers with him all the time, but he still feels like he's on his own. By having the funds from the sale of this property, it will allow others to benefit from that. It will allow my son to continue to benefit from that. So I hope that you will support this opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Tommy Mcdougall. I live at 1935 Old Hickory Boulevard here in Nashville. I've lived in Nashville all my life, born and raised here. However, I've got a couple restaurants here in Nashville called Mcdougall's Chicken, and I've got one directly across the street from this proposed project. So I'm here in support of the project. I believe that this density of the project would be great for the neighborhood and businesses alike of mine. Wood Partners and Andrew Steffens, over the last 9 months, they've been great. They've been very transparent and trustworthy and very accommodating and just willing to get people's ideas and thoughts from neighborhoods and the businesses. So we're just all very excited for this project and just all in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up and state your name and address in 2 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. As I'm representing the neighborhood, could I have some extended time? I think I could do it in 2 minutes, but I might need an extra minute.
No, we'll do 5 minutes. Usually our rules require a written request, but
Oh, sorry.
usually lawyers should know that, but not.
I'm not a lawyer.
Not a normal
I'm
citizen.
just a neighbor.
Not a tax-paying citizen. So
Thank
we
you.
appreciate, we'll give you 5 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My name's Bob Schennerline. I live at 1017 Southside Court, I live right there. Anyway, and I am representing several neighbors who could not be here tonight who are traveling. Many of them have sent letters to the Planning Commission. I believe most of you have probably received those letters. First of all, to the Rochelle Center and those that spoke, what a great community that is and the work that they do. We honor that and respect that and are thankful that they can continue to do that. And they've been great neighbors. As long as I've been there, I've lived there for 5 years. And as far as Wood Partners goes, I have to agree with everything everybody said. They've been great to work with, meet with us and understand and recognize what our issues are and have responded in kind. While we're there, we don't feel like we're all the way there yet as a neighborhood. This structure right here, the picture that you're seeing there kind of represents what I'm talking about in that the only portion of that building that is 3 stories tall is way to the right, clear to the right, and it meets the same height as that building right next to it. Then it steps up immediately, and then it steps up again. So when all of us, when we purchased in this neighborhood, being that it is entirely a single-family neighborhood, expected that it would be developed at some point. We expected it would be developed in kind with the rest of the neighborhood. I stood before this body a year or so ago speaking about an Airbnb situation, and there was a lot about protecting the neighborhoods, and I was inspired by that. I'm not sure how this accomplishes protecting our neighborhood. So we have height issues, obviously. I'll read from a couple of the letters that we have here. We're supportive of the building. Even though it's not in scope with the rest of the neighborhood, we just don't like it in its current form. So our request from a height perspective is all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac. Just recognize what every other person that has built a house or purchased a house in that neighborhood has had to do with respect to setbacks and height. If you need additional density, you can get that from the end of the cul-de-sac to 12th Avenue. Go higher there to get your density. That leaves the rest of that in kind, or as close to in kind with the rest of the neighborhood as possible. So that's one of our requests. Traffic is another request. And as part of that Southside Court, where I live specifically, is kind of getting the raw end of the deal here, right? The setback is only 10 feet there, so you walk out my front door and the rest of our neighbors, we're going to be smacked with a 41-foot and 55-foot building right in front of us, where today we have a beautiful view of the city. We also get the trash right at the end of our cul-de-sac. So it's really transforming that piece of the neighborhood, or that portion of the neighborhood. Traffic, there are concerns about traffic. I think they've been well commented, and they've made a proposal to help with the traffic patterns. There is a request that if they could enter from 12th Avenue instead of Southside Court. One of our residents lived in one of their properties, and that main gate is broken about 10% of the time, which means if you have over 300 residents there and that thing is broken, then all of those residents are dumping on the Southside Court, which is just a small cul-de-sac, obviously. I spoke to the setback. You mentioned, Commissioner Sims, density. So the Beeman project, there's a whole lot of density going in there. The novel project that was just finished at the corner, the opposite corner of 12th and South Street. At the end of 8th Avenue, there are multiple buildings going up there from a density perspective. All of those commercially zoned, obviously. This is a neighborhood. At least the Beeman project does offer some amenities for the community. This does not. There's nothing that this provides to our neighbors in any way, shape, or form. So if you need that density, we just ask that you get it on 12th Avenue instead of right there on Southside Court. I think with that, we welcome the neighborhood, that we welcome them to the neighborhood. We would just like them to follow the same rules that all of us had to follow to the end of the cul-de-sac. And that would make everybody's lives a lot better in our world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you for your service to the community. My name is Michael Schneider. I live in Edge Hill, about a few hundred yards from the project that you're discussing right now. I'm speaking today in opposition to one aspect of the process. There are at least 3 large projects right now underway in North Edge Hill. Collectively, these projects will lead to greatly increased traffic through our residential streets. The developers have proposed using 12th Avenue to access their sites for a portion of their traffic, which the city has refused to allow. As a result, the city is directing commercial traffic onto our small neighborhood streets. In particular, in this instance, the city is directing commercial traffic onto Southside Court, which is a very small, tiny cul-de-sac that cannot accommodate this traffic. And the question I'm asking this evening is why? Why is the city so adamantly opposed to allowing access from 12th Avenue? Are we seriously thinking that 12th Avenue will become a widely used bicycle pathway? This seems absurdly naive. Nashville is a great city, but it won't be a bicycle city. To us, it is irresponsible to approve multiple large projects while simultaneously demanding that a large adjacent avenue to these developments must be preserved as a bicycle pathway. This is bureaucratic virtue signaling at the cost of harming our community. This does not make sense, and it needs to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I want to say how much I appreciate the neighbors coming out and presenting their side and their concerns. But I want you to also note that they did say that we have worked closely with them in trying to make adjustments to the overall plan that they were concerned about. And your staff also pressed us to try and do better with the courtyard that you see on South Side. The trash pickup we had on South Street, but then that was a request both from NDOT and from the department, from the planning department, to move that on to South Side Court, which I think everyone agreed from the way that it was functioned and the way that it might interfere with what I've already pointed out is a corridor and a collector street would be significant. So we made those adjustments and agree with, from a planning perspective, that's certainly the right thing to do. We had a lot more massing along South Street, frankly, at the beginning, and through conversations with planning department, we started to break that massing up, both in materials and the way that it addresses the street. As we mentioned, we did step down to match the homes that are just to the east on South Side to try and respond to those concerns that we have. The homes that are across the street, the newer homes are all 3 stories, and the older homes are 1 story. We believe that the one home or 2 homes, I believe, that are still on South Side will probably eventually redevelop to match the massing of the new homes that have been built next to them at 3 stories. Well, as I said earlier, this hopefully can reduce some of the traffic by using the mass transit that we have. Those are 4 major lines from WeGo, and we believe that having multifamily right here at that intersection will be key to using that mass transit. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I don't think the council member is here. I don't believe. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. And Commissioner Johnson, you want to go first? Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chairman. What an honor. Well, thank you for neighborhood again coming to speak. I really appreciate that. I have been looking at this plan. I really appreciate the detailed plan because I was a little concerned about transition, height, 4-story, 5-story. But as I closely look at the plan submitted by Wood development team, I think the height, interestingly, existing newer 3-story housing and proposed housing is, even though proposed was 4-story, 5-story, it appeared to be kind of same height. So it's not really like a 4-story, 5-story, but not overlooking, towering over the existing modern new housing. So I think in that prospect, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the plan because especially kind of putting the density and height in the mixed-use corridor closer to north portion, closer to 12th Street site. I think it makes really sense. But I would like to ask probably Lisa or Amelia about the question. There's one of the comments says why it's not access from 12th Street. And I think, I'm not sure if 12th is arterials or collector, but my understanding is because those streets designed to carry more volume with a higher volume, so cutting through that will disrupt the flow of the traffic. I think that's the reason you recommended entrance to the South Street side. But if you would talk about that, that would be great.
Certainly. So 12 South has been approved for a extensive changes related to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. And so similar to conversations that we had on other projects along 12th, we are discouraging, along with NDOT, sort of new accesses onto 12th because you then are creating conflict points with bicycles and pedestrians in a corridor where we are going to be making improvements to encourage bicycle and pedestrians. And so we don't want to have those conflict points that could create safety hazards. And so we're not wanting to create sort of new drives to make those conflict points. We did not see a plan that had an access onto 12th, but I'm sort of assuming that if we did, we would have asked them to remove it from 12th, given those improvements that the city is going to be making.
Thank you. Yeah, that explains a lot. That's my exact thought process, so I appreciate the confirming. And with this, Rochelle Center, I do know them 20-something years ago, and they have been doing great job for the community. So when I first saw this project, I was sad to, see this wonderful organization leave that site. But I do appreciate the message and letter and comment from the Rochelle Center, because without a physical office being in there, they can continue a wonderful project, and which is not the reason for us to decide recommend or not recommend, but it is a great knowing their mission, wonderful mission, will continue elsewhere in the Davidson County. So as far as project is concerned and overall, I think this is a great project and it makes sense. And yes, we are adding so much density in that corridor, but considering affordable housing prospect, or considering mass transition prospect, and considering a better transition to existing neighborhood with height concern and setback, I am really impressed with this project. So I would love to hear from our fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilman?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone that came out and spoke. I appreciate the neighborhood representative coming out and speaking. As a former neighborhood leader myself, I know it's, you want to make sure that all the viewpoints are heard, and I think you did a great job with that. I also been very familiar with this location generally, but a lot of times what I like to do is on weekends go out and do field trips to kind of revisit some of these places, and there are some parts of town that I feel like I've known for years, and then I go drive by it and I not really sure where I am anymore, and this is definitely one of those. I mean, it's a new neighborhood, right, on an existing street grid. It is a brand new neighborhood. The number of units that have been replaced with the 3-story housing, which is by right, was really struck by the number of scooters that I saw on Southside Place. So that shows that folks definitely are utilizing alternative modes of transportation other than cars, and I think that's good. I think that also speaks to the sort of the value of adding housing density in an area where people can feasibly use bikes and other modes of transportation to get where they need to go, whether they're visitors to the area or residents. So I think this density is appropriate. I do think that it makes sense to have that. I understand the concern that was raised about having the kind of a 3-story height across all of the south side frontage. It appears in the site plan that there is a 5-level garage, and so I think that while I understand that idea, I think that what you would end up with is that you would have like a parking deck sticking out on top of the building potentially, unless you significantly reduce the units. So I understand that idea, but I'm grateful that the team has accommodated some reduction in height, at least on the eastern side of it adjacent to residences, which I know a lot of neighbors wrote about. Also have addressed the setbacks. That's one of the things I wanted to double check. It looks like the new condition 11, I think, addresses that revised setback where it joins the neighboring residences to the east. So I think a lot of work's been done. One thing that I also really appreciated about the presentation from Amelia was about having the street level door access, at least in some places, as you transition into the neighborhood. I think that really helps it to begin to feel more like you're moving into a neighborhood rather than having a really, really large apartment building, that sort of becomes a wall sometimes. I think having those doors to activate it is a really good improvement to the site plan. So I'm very impressed by also the amount of letters of support that we've heard from neighbors and business owners, especially small business owners, and some, not so small business owners, but I always appreciate hearing from the business owners in the area. Sometimes in communities, as a neighborhood leader and as a council member, sometimes there's a feeling that there's like an opposition between residents and neighbors. And so sometimes we don't always hear from the business owners, but I'm glad to have a business owner here present today. I see a letter from a hair salon owner whom I happen to know who lives in my neighborhood, and he speaks to, the level of engagement that he and his staff and clients have observed from this team. So I think all of that speaks really well to the work that the team has done with the community so far. I see improvements in the revised conditions that we have on our desk today, even from what was in the original staff report that published a few days ago. Also, I know that I have to say that Councilmember Sledge has really been a proponent of adding density and has added a large amount of density in District 17, but has done so in really thoughtful and creative ways and listens to the community. I believe that if once this moves on to council, if there are additional ways that he can accommodate the neighbors, that I believe that he will make a good effort to do that, just in my experience working with Councilmember Sledge. So I am very appreciative of the revised conditions that staff presented today, and hope that commissioners will consider that. But I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Commissioner Henley?
Well, again, I'll start by thanking both those who spoke in favor and those who spoke in opposition. I think the thing that I was impressed by as well as before getting here this evening was the letters of support and hearing from people in the community about the support for the project and the amount of engagement that was done there. You know, a lot of things that I anticipated coming up were things that were somewhat echoes of what happened with the North Edge Hill project, right? The access from 12th and sending people down the corridor streets and honestly the heights. And, you know, I think a lot of that was addressed by some of my fellow commissioners' comments. And I think our council member hit the nail right on the head, you know, accommodating the parking internally. You know, you'd see it one way or the other, and the height one way or the other, and so it's best to clad that with homes. We want houses for people. I think that's great. I did have a couple questions about it just from looking at it in black and white before we got here today, so I appreciate highlighting the access on the south side, and that made the point a lot more clear to me of what that was. I saw that large drive opening, and I was hoping there wasn't just gonna force a lot of traffic down that street. I hope the community understands the goals of that and why it's there and what was done. One question about the courtyard itself. It's not fenced or elevated. Is that correct? Is that a ground level courtyard on the south side?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. The south side courtyard is there to kind of address the street, provide some additional volume for the homes and pedestrian walkways. So yeah, it's a ground level courtyard.
Okay, so accessible to the community is the goal.
That detail hadn't necessarily been ironed out yet, but something we could consider.
Okay. And then I did have one other comment. With a lot of the conversation that we had previously at previous meetings, specifically about North Edge Hill, one thing I didn't hear about the program, and I'd be remiss if I didn't address it, is there any consideration for affordable housing? Is there a program? Is there thought going into that at this time?
Well, and before you answer that question, Commissioner Henley, we have to be careful to, how should I say this, from our lawyer. I'm going to have our lawyer address this, Mr. Henley, because, I want to make sure that we don't mess up procedurally. And so we've had this discussion about affordable housing. State legislature passed some laws to kind of to address that. And so I want to have Alex, our general counsel, to speak to asking about affordable housing to make sure we don't violate any.
Sure. I think the chair addressed it pretty well, but that generally we can't condition anything on affordable housing. So I generally advise not to address it and make it a factor in your decision whether or not there's affordable housing as a component of the development.
So with that said, Commissioner, I don't think that it's probably an appropriate question to ask, are you considering affordable housing for the project? I just don't
Fair
think
enough.
I want it to be crystal clean, right? We don't want any kind of gray area or we get sued a lot. So both by neighbors and developers. So I think it's like an equal suing arena, and we just don't want to make a reason. So thank you, Commissioner, for understanding.
Understood. And then my last question, while my wrist heals from that slapping, is there a conduit or a path? I see both the sidewalk that goes on the south side court that leads back to 12th, and then also it appears to be a tree-lined connector to south side. as well as South Street. Is that actually going to be accessible? I'm looking at what looks like a sidewalk. Is that there?
Yeah, those would be, we would make sure that those have access easements so that they are open. It wouldn't be a gated situation. We would make sure that those have access easements.
Okay, just wanted to avoid kind of that mega block feel in the community. Okay.
Yeah, that was a suggestion from the community that we wanted to provide that to allow access to 12th, the bike lanes, and for pedestrian access.
No. Well, again, I think, great work, great amount of effort. And again, even before getting here, the amount of work and effort you did spoke very highly of based on the letter of support and just conversations with people in the community. So I commend you for that. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. I did not mean to interrupt your questioning, so sorry about that. Commissioner Sims?
Oh, I've had my hand slapped so much. Please don't. Whatever I say.
I'll be super nice today.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Rochelle Center. I know for years, what the kind of work you've done, and I'm glad that somebody wants to pay what the property is worth, but I don't worry about that for you guys. You're sitting in prime property, so if this didn't work out, somebody's going to buy that piece of property. To you, Mr. Sloan, you've taught me almost everything I ever knew, so thank you for teaching me, and I'm really glad that you're listening to the neighborhoods. You always have. I am concerned about this one, and you would know I would be, but I'm a professor by training, and one of the flaws you can have, actually call it a deadly flaw in making decisions, is whether or not you really understand and take into effect context. This is maybe a great project, but we're sitting in the middle of a neighborhood who has been changed so significantly over the last 5 years, particularly the last 5 years, with nothing but SPs. This neighborhood, and you hear it in the letters that they wrote, are exhausted. They were promised an SP, in one of these meetings several years ago. It has been funded. It has been, thank goodness that our director actually went to bat for it in spite of a lot of obstacles. But we don't have a contextual understanding of this neighborhood. And I know for a fact that neighborhoods are getting exhausted and they're getting very, very upset. They're starting to even hire attorneys. And until we take into really impact what the neighbors are telling us, really listen and slow down a little bit. We don't have to hurry through this. This letter really got to me because they're saying all we are simply asking is that this align with existing homes. And they had 4 simplies. And that's true. They're not asking this not happen. They're not asking that this somehow be done away with. They're simply saying, please listen to us and take to effect. So I think this is heading in the right direction, but it's not there yet. And I can't not listen to the neighborhood voices here. I think it's premature for this group to keep making, premature is the wrong word. We have SP'd this neighborhood literally almost out of existence. And I think we have to really think carefully about what we're doing here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Haynes.
I always appreciate Dr. Sims' thoughtful considerations, and I think she is right. However, I do think we have to balance her concerns with where we have to place density. And I think placing density in this neighborhood along 12th Avenue is the right place to do it. I think the developer has been incredibly thoughtful and deliberate in listening to the neighborhood and in working up a better plan. I do think you should make this garden open to the public. I think you're going to integrate the residents of the apartment complex with the neighborhood in a much more cohesive manner. So I would suggest you do that. I think not having access on 12th is correct. And while I appreciate the gentleman's concern about biking and pedestrian folks along 12th, as the Planning Commission designated representative on the Parks Committee, unless we think through where we're going to encourage biking and walking and effective bus transportation, we're not going to be successful long-term, and we don't need access points along 12th. So having said all that, I do think this is a really, really good plan. This is where we need density, and I'm going to support staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes. And the question came up, can we make that courtyard, access open to the public potentially as a condition. Can we do that, Director?
Yes, you would need to include it in your motion.
So Commissioner Haynes, you're the last person to speak, and
So I will move approval of staff's recommendation with one additional condition, and that is that the courtyard facing Southside Court be open to the public.
that's a proper motion. Is there a second? There's a proper second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. 5 ayes, 1 no, and it's approved with one extra condition. Thank you. So, Commissioners, we've been here for about 2 hours, but I think before we take a break, I think we could do one more if the Commissioners are up for it. Would that be okay, or is there an objection to that? Let's go ahead and do one more then. And we are on item number 28. And so, Logan, you're back up. And if everybody could exit the room, we still got to keep going, so I appreciate it. All right, Logan, Logan's getting ready.
Okay, Chair, thank you for recognizing me. My name is Logan Elliott with the Planning Department, and I'll be presenting item 28 on tonight's agenda. The request is to rezone property from AR2A and specific plan to RM4, and staff is recommending disapproval. The application includes several parcels comprising approximately 290 acres located on the north side of Ashland City Highway and also having frontage on Cato Road west of Briley Parkway. The site is currently zoned AR2A and specific plan. The specific plan zoned portion is near Ashland City Highway and permits building contractor supply as a land use as well as all uses permitted within AR2A. And this SP has not been developed as approved and is included in this rezoning application. The property has approximately 245 feet of frontage onto Ashland City Highway and over half a mile of frontage onto Cato Road. Ashland City Highway is an arterial boulevard, and the Major and Collector Street Plan in Cato Road is a local road. And there are currently 2 single-family residences on the property, with one drawing access from Ashland City Highway and the other from Cato Road. The subject property has a number of environmental features, including steep slopes, as seen on the left-hand side of the screen up here. The slopes increase in steepness, going from green to yellow to red, so that red is the most steeply sloped property, as well as problem soils existing on the site. And this is shown on the right side of the screen here. You can see the problem soils generally are located where the most steeply sloped property is. As a result of these environmental features, the majority of the site is within conservation policy, and the conservation policy intends to maintain these environmental features in their natural state or remediate them if they've been disturbed previously. The remainder of the property is within rural maintenance policy, and this policy is applied to the smaller pockets of the property that are flat or otherwise don't have environmental features. And the rural maintenance policy intends to maintain the rural nature of the area. Staff finds that due to the conservation policy that covers a majority of the site, that the proposal is inconsistent with the conservation policy. In general, the more environmentally sensitive the site is, the lower the appropriate density or intensity of development is. Also, looking at the rural maintenance policy, this policy provides guidance that generally 1 unit per 2 acres is appropriate, and that even lower density is preferred to preserve an open rural environment. This one 1 unit per 2 acre density would yield approximately 178 units on this property, just based on the acreage alone. And the proposed zoning district would potentially permit 1,161 units. Also, this area has a development pattern of single-family residences on large lots, and the proposed zoning district would not maintain this pattern as intended in the rural maintenance policy. Staff finds that the requested zoning district is not supported by either the rural maintenance policy or the conservation policy. Again, the intent of the rural maintenance policy is to maintain the character of the rural neighborhood, and the intent of the conservation policy is to preserve environmental features, and staff finds the RM4 zoning district to be inconsistent with both of these. Thank you. That completes my presentation.
Thank you. We'll open this item for public hearing, and the applicant is in the room, Mr. Dale.
I greatly appreciate it. I'm Roy Dale, and I do represent the applicant on this. I'm really here today, I think, more of a courtesy. This is a council directive bill. The council members already filed this bill. I think it's already passed first reading. But I just felt like I wanted to come talk to you so you didn't think this was some rogue request, and it's not. A lot of thought has gone into this. And so you have a handout, hopefully, that you could look at. And, you know, first of all, I want you to trust me. I hope you have after all these years. I'm a former Metro employee. I used to work on the Planning Commission staff for 4 years, back when Ferris Deep was running the Planning Commission. And I was a council member for 8 years, a consultant for many years after that. I've held hundreds of community meetings. And so I think I'm pretty well in touch with the public. There's a history to Bordeaux that you need to understand. And there's probably others here that can explain that better than I can. But Bordeaux has the stigma of always getting the worst of what's in Nashville. A landfill, another landfill, an attempt for another landfill, a hospital, a city cemetery, a prison, another prison. People in Bordeaux feel like that they are the dumping ground of the city, and they have felt that way for a long time. The policies that we've placed in Bordeaux have basically moved people out of that area. It's an aging demographic. People that were raised in that area, went to school in that area, simply have nowhere to live. They don't. Very few opportunities exist. I know that we're looking at Trinity Land now. That's awesome. I think that area will exist and will provide opportunities. But that area will provide opportunities for people that are quite wealthy, that can afford really nice houses that overlook Nashville. So I think that as a community, as a government, we've failed. We've failed Bordeaux, and there needs to be opportunities there. This property that you're looking at is at a prominent intersection. It's a 5-lane highway. It has industrial within it, and across the street, it's nothing but industrial. If you look at one of the photographs, you'll see this property has been almost totally destroyed. You may think that that was tree removal. I promise you it was much beyond that. So the little areas in that map, probably on the last sheet, I think, shows little green outlines. Those are trees that were preserved, and that probably represents steep slopes as well. So if you looked at the principles of land use policy and you applied it to this property, I don't see any way possible you would consider this to be a rural maintenance area. It has access to sewer. It has access to water. It has, if you look at the first sheet, it has some steep slopes, but not that many steep slopes. You can see around it how it's all red around it. That's where rural policy should exist. So this is an area which I feel like should allow some type of use for the people of Bordeaux. I wrote notes and I've just totally stopped using those. You'd say to me, well, hey, you're making a pretty good argument. Then why don't you start the land use policy process? Why don't you go out there and change the policy? Okay. I went out there, I had a community meeting, and I was screamed at. As loud as you could possibly be screamed at. I was told I was a developer. I was told that I had developed properties all across Nashville that were inferior. I'm not a developer. I'm an engineer. I'm a planner. I'm just a normal citizen. I don't represent projects that I've developed myself. As a matter of fact, people come to me every day asking me about properties every day, and I turn a lot of those down. I simply don't want to represent something I don't believe in. In addition, I sold Dillon Associates. I don't know if you know that or not. I still work as a consultant for them, but primarily the people that I help now are individual property owners people that would like to go through a process themselves and get their own entitlements and not have a developer come in and basically take their properties away, make money, and flip them to someone else. So I welcome people that probably don't even have the means to do something come to me. I'll help them. I do it every day. So this is a piece of property that's probably been owned by someone for a long time. There's really no developer involved at this point in time. He simply wants to get some kind of entitlements for his land for the future of Bordeaux. So having talked to the council member, I hope it will happen. I know what your mission is today. You have a mandatory referral. You have no choice but to follow policy. I understand that. But to send me out to try to change the land use policy is a target on my back because I'm looked at as a developer and I'm screamed at and I'm yelled at and I'm lied to. And I don't want to subject myself to that. And even if I began that process and you send a staff member out there, they're going to be subjected to the same thing. So we could be planners of the city and do what we think's right based upon policies, or we can be influenced by a few. And this could probably be a very few that could influence you on this. It's frustrating. I've talked to the council member. I'm hoping that what he will do is that he'll refer this to some group or some committee or some group within the community to sit together collectively and decide what they want on this property. But it is not supposed to be a rural maintenance policy. At the corner of an intersection, it doesn't have that many environmental features. It's been almost totally graded, and it should be something that the people of Bordeaux could utilize to fulfill a need of housing, to have enough students to fill a high school that doesn't even have enough kids in it. Can you imagine in a city that's growing like Nashville that we would have a part of town that doesn't have a high school full of kids? Doesn't make sense. Our solution is just to continue to push people to Antioch. And I'm sure that council members Porterfield and Lee and Vercher and Stiles could tell you they're tired of it. You have other parts of the city that need to grow, and this is one. So I feel like I'm lecturing. I don't mean to do that. But I just think in this case, this is an area that should be considered. Just to file a zoning bill is probably not the right way to do it. To go through a process is probably the right way to do it. But to put me in the center of that, I think is the wrong way to do it. It needs to be a community initiative. I know that Councilmember Gamble is talking about looking at areas of Nashville. This would probably be one. What you did on Trinity, I thought was fabulous. I was involved in that process. You had people sitting down with plans and people drew what they thought needed to go here or there. And it was a wonderful process, and I think it worked. And that's probably what should happen here. So I appreciate your time. I'll hold 2 minutes just in case I think of something I forgot. I'll smile so I don't look so sad. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate everything that you do. Staff is very good. You have a great staff. I'll say that every time. They're just a great group of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. We were wondering why we hadn't seen you in a bit. All right. So we'll reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone wishing to speak in support? All right. Seeing no one wishing to speak in support, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up. And then, so there's a lot of people here for this. It's a disapproved item. So what we'll ask is, obviously, you get 2 minutes, but try not to repeat yourselves. And then please state your name and address and be kind to all of us. All right. Oh, yes, Director? Yes.
So you might clarify in the public hearing, you're speaking in opposition to the proposal. Did you say?
Yes,
Forgive me if you
in
said that.
opposition to
Not
the proposal.
To the staff, right? Okay.
No, not in opposition to the to the staff. No. All right, 2 minutes. Please state your name. And
Thank you. My name is Troy Williams. I live at 4479 Cato Road. My property is just separated from this parcel by one other parcel of property. I want to thank Mr. Elliott for recommending that this proposal be disapproved. This is the second time that this property has come before the commission. In September of last year, it was also disapproved, and all for the same reasons. He mentions in his comments the conservation policy. I think there's an actual stronger conservation easement that's attached to this property that in June of 2018, when this property was auctioned off, The auctioneer indicated that there was a conservation easement attached to this property. That's pretty significant. That really grabbed my attention. In the IRS website, when they talk about conservation easements, they said, in recognition of our need to preserve our heritage, Congress allowed an income tax deduction for owners of significant property who give up certain rights of ownership to preserve their land or buildings for future generations. So I hope that you will keep this in mind when you vote on this proposal. And just as a side note, I want to make you aware of something that's going on this property. There's a significant earthen dam that's holding back a pretty large quantity of water right along Cato Road, and it's leaking right now. The dam hasn't been properly maintained, and there's some pretty large trees growing on it, and I think the root structure has weakened the dam. I'm certainly hoping that there's not a catastrophic failure anytime in the near future, because there are several houses downstream that would be greatly affected by that. I don't know if y'all know who oversees earthen dams in Davidson County, if that's a metro requirement or state, but I'd certainly be happy to let them know of this issue if y'all know who that might be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak against it? Come on up. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Ian Rett from Cato Neighbors. I asked for 5 minutes last week.
5 minutes?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to all the commissioners. I learned in my land use policy journey that started this year with this proposal that y'all are volunteers, and I've been watching your videos and see you listen to these questions and take this all on. I really appreciate that a lot. And I also want to thank the planning staff. Every time that I've talked to them, they've always been professional and thorough and very helpful, so I really appreciate that a lot. I think this is a pretty easy case for you to decide today. It's clearly against the land use policy. There's no justification in the policy for an RM4 density. And so just on that basis alone, I think that it's worth just disapproving. It also goes against the guiding principles of Nashville Next, doesn't provide a walkable center, doesn't preserve the rural nature, which is clearly in the concept map indicated that this area is intended to be preserved. That was the outcome of the Nashville Next. I want to speak to something that Mr. Dale said. I appreciate what you said about context and how context is really important. In District 1, we have not had a District 1 council meeting since October. This issue was brought up to us in July, and at the meeting that Mr. Dale referred to, he was rebuked pretty resoundingly because he came with an RM4 application with no demonstration of what was intended there. It was just sort of a slap in the face because it was such a radical departure from what anyone had expected. Since then, there's been no engagement on the part of the community to involve us. Furthermore, our district has a real problem right now with our representation and what's going on with Councilmember Hall, right? It's very frustrating we got 3 notices in the last 30 days for this issue. 3 separate notices. So it's been very confusing about what's going on. This is being driven right now from council. It was initially proposed to you in September, and it was indefinitely deferred. And now Councilmember Hall reissued that legislation a few days before Christmas, and it passed first reading just shortly after the 1st. So we feel in our district, the context that I think is really important is there has been a real breakdown in the communications specifically about this particular proposal and in the general policy in general. So I really would like to request a unanimous disapproval, send a message to council to reset the process. If we want to talk about density in this property, let's talk about what the proposals are. Let's look at what the actual ideas are. So far, we haven't seen anything at all. And furthermore, there's been no update to the application since then. This has been very vexing. It's very hard to get people to come out and support. What we saw in the planning department's engagement with the community with redistricting was really impressive. I was super impressed by that. And I learned a lot from you, Councilman Withers, about things about what were going on. I really appreciate that process. There's been nothing like this for this particular thing. And so we just feel like this is a gross overreach. There is no justification in policy whatsoever for this, and there should be no reason to approve this whatsoever. The half mile of frontage is really a misnomer because if there's it's just a sheer drop off the side of this. There's no way to access on Cato Road from that except at the very corner where it turns around. There is just one area where it could be accessed legitimately. Otherwise, Cato Road is a 2-lane highway with steep slopes on either side, and it's very problematic to put this kind of density in there. I think that's all I want to say right now. I really appreciate the commission's attention. I really want to urge some consideration for the situation that we're having in District 1 right now and not being able to have community meetings on a regular basis. The last one in October was announced just 4 days prior. So when are we having these conversations and this kind of engagement? I've heard engagement every time in the last several cases, and I think it's so important that we have that, and it's just not happening here. So on that basis, on the basis of no commission, no policy justification, and a complete breakdown in community engagement and representation, I ask for unanimous disapproval. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up. Welcome.
My name is Kelly Albright. I live at 4610 Eatons Creek Road. It's just right off of Cato Road and Ashland City Highway there. I would like to second what Ian talked about. Our current representative is MIA. We have no representation. We have no one to speak to about these matters. So we simply have to take time to come to meetings such as this and really talk through why this is out of character for the area that we live in. I understand what Mr. Dale was saying, but as the sponsor for this, this proposal, there was a drastic emotional difference between the way he just presented his case to you all and the way the prior representatives presented their case. Even the people that were against their proposals gave them the respect and ability to have conversations back and forth. That has not happened here. To come into a neighborhood that has extreme diversity and then to say that the people of that area are not having their needs met is disingenuous. The area is full of character and full of people that are of all different backgrounds. There's plenty of neighborhoods, plenty of people that have different perspectives, and it would do him a lot of service to come and actually speak to the people as well as our representative to find out what we would like, as opposed to throwing those ideas at us. This area of Nashville is preserved under Nashville Next for a reason. Growth is insatiable, and once it starts, it's very hard to stop. The natural border of Briley Parkway has provided a very nice barrier for that, and which is why Nashville Next even came into existence in this area. I would just ask that you would please continue to support what has already been established under Nashville Next and appreciate the planning staff taking the time to appreciate the environmental concerns of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Name's Brian Boland. I live at 4642 Cato Road. It's immediately across from the majority of that acreage. I wasn't going to say anything today, but listening to Mr. Dale speak, I did kind of feel like I was being preached to. I've been in Nashville probably since '83. I've always lived in East Nashville and Bordeaux, North Nashville. Those are the only two places I've ever lived. I've owned this house for a couple years. Can't afford to live in East Nashville anymore. I got a problem with somebody who obviously doesn't understand or speak to anybody in my neighborhood telling me or us what we should and shouldn't have. I don't like feigned I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's like, oh, well, these people are being left behind. Yeah, Bordeaux has been left behind on a lot of things over the years, North Nashville, Bordeaux. Yeah, we got the short end of the stick. Yeah, the dump and all that, the prison, everything. All that is true. But nobody that I've spoken to, nobody, not saying that I've spoken to everybody, but no one that I've spoke to is on board with what they're trying to do right here. You're going to come in and tell people that this is what you need. That's not how this is supposed to work. What's supposed to happen here is you come to the people and ask them what they need. What do you want? What do you want to happen here? You understand? Not come in and say, hey, this is what you need. This is what's best for you. We're going to run this down your throat. I just want my guy to understand that right here. Seems like many of you probably already understand that. I know my time is up. But just keep that in mind. I appreciate it if you would, that there's nobody here that's supporting this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming down.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Robert Albright. I live at 4610 Eatons Creek Road. I took off work today. I'm a nurse at the VA. I took off to be here because I think it's important. And one thing that and sitting here and listening to him talk, Mr. Dale, earlier, he mentioned that there's no opportunities for people to live out in the Bordeaux area. If you're not familiar with that area, you might ask yourself, why? Have you ever looked at a map, an aerial map of that? I can tell you personally, I own 72 acres. My neighbor Mike Flowers owns 60. Charlie Tambellini owns 105. Bob Brummett owns 50. Bert Malin owns 52. Those are my neighbors. That's the rural area I live in. I bet nobody in here knows Mr. Charles Huston, the gentleman that owned that property, that spent his lifetime collecting pieces of property to build that. He was in the tractor club we was in. He no more than passed away before his 10 children auctioned it off. Broke my heart. I was there that day at that auction. It was sad. It was sad to see it go. But in our area, it cannot support 1,100 units. When I built my home off Eatons Creek Road, my water pressure was 10 PSI at my house. 10. I had to get a water booster to boost it. We don't even have a trash pickup. We don't have natural gas. We don't have sewer. I can hear the trash trucks come, but they stop at Briley Parkway. They're not there. In a lot of ways, we've been left out. But in a lot of ways, there's a reason why we chose this area, because it is rural, it is open, and we'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, 2-minute rebuttal. Mr. Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, this is a courtesy. I know what you need to do today. I support what you need to do. This bill in its current form, you can't adopt that. I understand that. If there's no, and one of the reasons I'm here is because Councilman Withers is here, and this will go before the council. And I'm sure that Councilman Hall will open a process. I hope it's a community process. Maybe the Planning Commission can be involved. There's no rush to this zoning. From my perspective, I know there is something in the community going on with another landfill or a proposal of a landfill across the street. And I think that whatever happens on this property could have some bearing on that. So that might be some immediate need that you may hear Councilman Hall talk about. But I don't, like I said, didn't mean to sound like I'm preaching. I'm not. I would like there to be a meaningful process within the community. And I think that that can happen. But in my experience, what's happened so far on this is more of a turf battle, which is unfortunate. It's gotten somewhat personal, which is unfortunate. And what I'd like to see is for people to sit down together as a group, like they did in Trinity, and try to come up with what they think is best for this area and work together. And I think when they do that, you'll find that there are some opportunities here, and this area has been overlooked and probably misaligned. So I appreciate it. I'm not asking you to support this zoning. You know what you need to do, which is fine. I just, again, wanted to appear to you as a courtesy so you would understand in context what's happened, what is happening. I don't have control of this. It is on the council level, but Councilman Withers is involved, so he can help direct the narrative on that. And I'll be here to help any way I can, and I'll meet with the community at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. The council member is not here, so seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Haynes, you want to go first? Try again, go in first.
Sure. Mr. Dale, we always appreciate when you come to see us, not necessarily when you lecture us. I would encourage you that you do have a little bit of control, and that's to get Councilman Hall to be a councilman to his district. I think that's what's missing, and if, I've been on this board for 11 years, it disappoints me greatly that I'm hearing from District 1 that they have no representation. So as long as you've been working in this city, that's what I would encourage you to think about. I'm going to support staff's recommendation of disapproval.
Commissioner Sims.
I'm really sorry this gets so hard. I mean, when the council people do their job, ours is really easy. And I'm sorry you've got somebody missing in action. I think, though, but Mr. Dale said it better than anybody. We don't have a choice about how we can vote on this, and I support the staff.
Commissioner Henley.
Yeah, well, I will say this again. Thanks to everyone who came, and Mr. Dale included. A lot of things were brought to our attention, and I do believe that having these conversations in public forum is great, and it empowers a lot of people to move forward. So thank everyone who took the time. A lot of things were said that definitely resonate with me. I do agree. I mean, when you're talking about such a large swath of land, no matter where it's located, you should definitely have representation at the forefront of that and speaking to it and being able to truly represent the community's feelings about it. And again, as a proponent for engagement deeply and thoroughly in communities, especially with the type of transition our city is facing now, I think this is just something that needs to go back time and time and time again, if anything even happens to it. So I agree with staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Henley. And before we go to the next speaker, I just want to remind both commissioners and the public, let's try to not talk about the person, but about the issue. So let's continue to, I know sometimes the council member's not here, he can't defend himself. So I just ask that we try to stick to the issue. Could have been a circumstance, there's a lot of things. So let's try to just keep to the issues and not the person. I appreciate that. Friendly reminder, for sure. All right, Councilman.
Thank you, Chair Atkinson. Appreciate your bringing that perspective. I mean, each of my Metro Council colleagues was duly elected, and so there was a public process of how they were elected. At least that time, there's never a guarantee that anyone's going to run for office again or be reelected again, but that is the duly elected representative of that area for that time based on a legal process of voting, which I know we all value voting very highly. So it can be awkward. I mean, sometimes in any community you have a lot of disagreement. In District 6, we love to argue about anything and everything all the time. But definitely having council members really facilitate a public engagement definitely helps, at least understand what the dynamics are and what options were considered and maybe why they are being advanced or not. I wish more of my council colleagues would send us letters or come to their own hearings just in front of this body, because sometimes this is the first bite that I get at it as a council member, is to kind of hear from the community, but also from the council member. So as a general statement, I wish more of my colleagues would participate in these hearings as a setup to the public hearing that we're going to have, which, even on that side, we don't see a lot of participation in Metro Council zoning bill public hearings anymore. I don't know a reason for that, but just want to throw that out there, that a lot of times on council, we cannot speak to each other outside of a publicly noticed meeting. And if you don't have a lot of community feedback, it just sort of becomes a judgment call, right? And so I think sometimes people get frustrated at council, and we're trying to read the tea leaves a little bit, but definitely appreciate folks that are coming out. This is one of those cases that, one of the things I enjoy about serving, representing the Metro Council in this role is I get to get out of District 6 sometimes and go see other parts of the county. And this is one that I know a lot of the Whites Creek area, but had never been down Cato Road before. And there's this really awesome church. I about wrecked the car. Like, look at that. To go take a picture of that church, because I really enjoyed that structure, the Jordonia Methodist Church. One of the things, too, I appreciate what Mr. Dale is saying about this area. This does not have a lot of frontage on Ashland City Highway at all. In fact, it's pretty narrow. And when you look at those lots, when I was driving by it, it is a very wide highway. It's not an area where, particularly on a parcel with that amount of narrow frontage, I would be kind of nervous to back out of it if I lived there, right? Much less to add a large number of vehicles coming out onto Ashland City Highway in this area where there's just not a lot of traffic signals or stop signs or anything like that. My recollection of that portion of the Ashland City Highway side of the site is that those hills themselves set up a pretty steep hill. So I just don't know that adding a driveway to a large number of vehicles is a good idea there, absent a really significant traffic plan. From the Cato Road side, again, you go through a little bit more of somewhat of a more suburban area, but it's pretty rural. One of the things that I was really interested in checking out was that Cato Ridge subdivision, which is kind of across the street. It's really well done. Really beautiful houses. Again, I mean, it's like something I never knew was there. And really enjoyed checking that out. But the gentleman's point about, the natural features and the grade, I mean, it is rural. It's very wooded. Even on Sunday, when we finally warmed up quite a bit on Sunday, there were places up on that ridge on Cato Road where there was still snow and ice on the road on Sunday, and it was pretty warm on Sunday afternoon when I was doing my site visits. So again, I mean, staff analysis indicates you could put well over 100 houses on there by right. I mean, I think that's probably too many just by right? So I can see that in an area you could maybe take a piece of this property and do something really nice, sort of like what was done with Cato Ridge, like here's this little valley and we're going to put something that's really well constructed in this particular spot. I could see that happening, but a blanket rezoning of this level for this much land is just a bad idea. And I know in East Nashville, we have a burgeoning, East Nashville is famously growing into Madison, and you're so East Nashville if you move to Madison, but there's a lot of connectivity in community between the East Nashville community and Whites Creek and District 1. And I know when I was out in the community this weekend, just people, this is something, I had my own constituents ask me about this parcel, right? So like, there's so much awareness in the county of this desire to keep the area, particularly the area outside of Briley, very rural. That's very widely felt, and I think there's a lot of sympathy for that, even among people who really support density in other places, but just feel like this needs to be kept as rural as we can keep it. So I support staff recommendation. I can definitely see that. I think Mr. Dale's point is well taken, that I think sometimes whether it's an attorney or an engineer, they're not developing it themselves, and I think sometimes they become the focus of community passion for something like this, and it can sting for sure. And as an elected official, we feel it, but we also knock on doors and ask for it. So just want to ask folks to always just kind of try to be respectful, in particular folks that are just presenting information to you that another body such as the council will decide. But I have to agree with the staff recommendation. I actually think that the density that would be allowed by right is probably higher than I would be comfortable with, just to be really honest. And so I think the staff recommendation is appropriate. I don't know that even if a corridor, like the Trinity area has a lot going on where it's connecting between all the way to Gallatin and over to Bordeaux, and we've got opportunities to really connect, bike lanes and maybe crosstown bus lines, and there's a lot of promise, I think, for the Trinity Lane corridor, and that Trinity Lane study was really well done, and I think it's going to continue to guide good growth there. I don't know that if the community were invited to have a similar discussion about Ashland City Highway that we would find anything similar to that. I think they pretty much like it the way it is. Largely, I hear that, yes, there are industrial uses. I just don't know that folks are interested, I haven't heard that folks are interested in adding like even suburban centers or things like that in those areas. That's what I've heard so far. A different process could yield different results, but I support the staff recommendation and the work that the staff have done on this.
Thank you, Council.
We'll see how things go at council.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you again for the community and for coming out and speak. And thank you, Mr. Dale, for your very candid comment. I really appreciate that. I think it's unanimous. We agree on the staff recommendation of this zone change is not appropriate. In that note, I do have a question. I understand currently this bill, at the last meeting, it was deferred, but at the March meeting, this will currently scheduled to a second reading in a public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So we had received an application from an applicant for this rezoning that was then deferred indefinitely. And then in the meantime, the council office, at the request of the council member, filed the bill. And so we had to get it back onto our agenda so that we would have an opportunity to make a recommendation in advance of the public hearing.
Thank you. So for that, because our body is a recommendation body, so the council has ultimate, authority when it comes to zone change. So if we were to disapprove, council has to adapt by 27 vote. Because of such unanimous opposition from community, and as far as I can tell from the commission, and especially this area with encyclopedia of program soil, hills, and conservation policy, I'm afraid, with a council member leading the charge, just have RM4 as a placeholder, even though there's not particular development idea is there yet, but just because, some may want to have little density, so therefore let's have, RM4 as a placeholder. And if, 27 of the council members agree upon that, that could happen. And I think that's, considering this specific location, it's totally inappropriate. So I would like to ask our general counsel, if our body, is it appropriate to recommend indefinite deferral instead of disapproval? So what will be the effect for that?
Yeah, I think that the nature of the body here is, like you said, because it's a recommending body, I would advise against recommending indefinite deferral because that's something that council has to decide. Yours is really to approve or disapprove. So I'd recommend against that. There's not really a mechanism for how to address that at the council level.
Alex, forgive me, in legal, if it is deferred, I think council would still have the opportunity to move it forward. And I believe that it would be read as an approved bill if it's indefinitely deferred. And so while I think what you're suggesting, you're trying to figure out how to maybe give that space for a different decision. I think in practical terms, the council would not have to it would be read as the same as an approval. Lisa, correct?
That's right. So if it was a recommendation of deferral from this body, that would not be deemed a disapproval for the purposes of 21 versus 27 votes. And so the only thing that actually triggers that higher vote threshold is a recommendation of disapproval.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. For that, I think my recommendation will be to support staff recommendation of disapproval. And my wish with the council body is to have a community meeting, really look at it, and then come up with appropriate policy as well as appropriate zoning. So, but in that, I will move to accept staff recommendation for disapproval.
Second. That's a proper motion and second. Any other discussion? So the motion is to recommend the staff's recommendation of disapproval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and it's disapproved. All right, so we've been here almost 3 hours, and We appreciate everybody coming, and we're going to take a slight break, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Luckily, we won't go to midnight tonight, I think, so that's good. All right, so we are on item number 37 for public hearing.
Yes, thank you.
Logan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Logan Elliott, and I'll be presenting item 37 on tonight's agenda. The request is to revise the preliminary PUD plan for a section of the Century South PUD. The application proposes to modify the site plan layout for this section, and the application does not propose to modify the unit counts of the permitted land uses, and the layout retains all the access points previously approved through the Metro Council. And to clarify the process for this application, revisions do not require concurrence by the Metro Council, and the Planning Commission is the final reviewing authority for this application. And staff is recommending approval with conditions. The 184-acre site is located adjacent to I-24 in the southeast part of the county, and currently there is no access to the site, and the property is within the Century South PUD and has R20 base zoning. Policy for this site is suburban community center and suburban neighborhood evolving. Both intend to create suburban style development, with the community center aiming for commercial development and the neighborhood evolving looking for more residential development. The conservation policy recognizes steep slopes, a stream, and a potential wetland on the property. The currently approved plan shown here on the screen was approved for 512,000 square feet of office and 964 multifamily units for this section of the PUD only. The plan includes a new public street that runs parallel to I-24, and in conjunction with the other phases of this PUD would make a complete street connection between Old Franklin Road to the north and Old Hickory Boulevard to the south. The office use on the current plan is located surrounding this new public street, and the multifamily units are located to the west of the new street on an additional new public road that makes a loop through the western portion of the PUD. The proposed plan modifies the site plan to adjust the layout and the building forms for this section of the PUD. The plan proposes to maintain the location of the new public streets, and now proposes to limit the office buildings to the eastern side of the new road that's adjacent to I-24. The office buildings are limited to 4 stories in height and are served with surface parking. To the west of the new public street are multifamily units, and these units are a mixture of townhome and stacked flat type units. This portion of the PUD also includes a portion of the new loop road, and this loop road provides access to the western area of the site, and the majority of the multifamily units will draw their access from this loop road. The loop road would be completed with the adjacent section of the PUD that's directly to the south and east, and is shown on the screen here with the dashed line. So that road would be completed with the adjacent section of the PUD. And internally, the multifamily units are served by private drives with surface parking, and amenity buildings are dispersed throughout the multifamily area. Looking at the topography of the site, there are steep slopes on the site, primarily at the northern end of the site. There's also a stream that runs through the middle of the site and a potential wetland near I-24. The exhibit here shows the site plan overlaid with the slopes on the site, and the plans also include a grading and drainage plan that demonstrates how the site would be graded and identifies potential areas that will need retaining walls. The application also includes a phasing plan that provides the anticipated sequence of construction for this section of the PUD. The new public street that runs parallel to I-24 is within the first phase of the PUD. It also includes 364 multifamily units in this phase. Phase 2 begins the Loop Road and includes 348 multifamily units. Phase 3 completes the portion of the Loop Road within this section of the PUD and includes 252 multifamily units. And Phase 4, the final phase of this section, would include the office buildings to the east of the new public street. Staff finds the proposed plan to be consistent with the intent of the currently approved PUD plan and that the modifications to the plan comply with the applicable zoning requirements. This plan is more sensitive to the environmental features of the site than the currently approved plan and is consistent with the hillside development standards of the zoning code. The phasing plan also specifies when the necessary infrastructure will be provided to support this development. Staff is recommending approval based on the plan that we have reviewed, but last night a community meeting was held, and after this meeting, staff received a list of conditions and commitments that the Cane Ridge Community Club would like to have included as requirements for this application. This list was shared with the commission as we received it, and staff has not had sufficient time to review this list of conditions and commitments, and staff is not including these in our recommendation for the application at this time. If there was a desire for these conditions or commitments to be included in the application, then staff would need more time to review these and to vet them with the necessary various agencies. So that completes staff's presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. And so we also have this I guess is more of a question. Do we have a request from the council member to defer this item too?
Hi, yes, we did receive a request from Councilmember Lee requesting a deferral to the March 10th meeting, given the community meeting that took place and her understanding that there were still questions and a desire for the community to continue to work on the conditions that we received today.
So let me get this straight. You got the staff team has just received those. How many were they conditions? 30 or something?
Yeah, maybe 20 to 30.
Yeah, and have you had time to review all those? No.
We have not. We received those. We had those today, but we did not have time to react. It's an extensive list of conditions. Some of them we would need to communicate with other reviewing agencies, such as NDOT. Some are likely not ones that the planning or Metro can actually enforce, and so we would probably want to make sure that they were clearly delineated as to what can be included as an enforceable condition by Metro versus what can't, and we did not have ample time to complete that analysis.
So generally, commissioners, when we get a request from the council member to defer, we usually honor that request. I don't know if we've ever not honored that, but I think here too we have another issue is that we have not had time to. The staff team has not had the time to review those conditions and review those with legal to see what we can or cannot. So while I just don't even think we could hold the public hearing without having enough staff time to work on this and with the request from the council lady. So is there any discussion before we, is there any discussion? We'll need a motion to defer now let me also ask this, if we do that, excuse me, Commissioner, how much time do we need? Would one deferral or two deferrals, or what is the team?
So staff reports for the February 24th meeting are due on Monday, and we publish next Friday, and so when we're back on our sort of every 2-week schedule, 2 meetings to March 10th is likely more appropriate.
Okay. So commissioners, you've heard the issue here. Any discussion, or is there a motion to?
I make a motion to defer 2 meetings.
Okay, that's a proper motion. Is there a second? Proper second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. It's deferred 2 meetings. All right, so now we are on to Item 38. Logan, we are wearing you out tonight, my friend. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not a problem. My name is Logan Elliott, and I will be presenting item 38 on tonight's agenda. The request is for subdivision concept plan approval to create 22 cluster lots. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions. The property is approximately 49 acres and is located on South Mount Juliet Road at the edge of the county, adjacent to Wilson County. The site is within the T2 rural maintenance policy, so the subdivision regulations require that Chapter 4 be utilized. The plan proposes 22 cluster lots that have a minimum lot size of 30,000 square feet through the cluster lot option. 21 of the proposed lots are approximately 30,000 square feet, and one lot will retain the existing structure and is approximately 18 acres. The plan utilizes the screened alternative of these subdivision regulations and provides an approximately 500-foot deep open space along South Mount Juliet Road. The plan includes a new public street that provides access to the proposed lots, as well as to the property to the east that is within Wilson County. Landscape buffers are provided where required by the cluster lot option and the screened alternative option. And the existing trees along South Mount Juliet Road are proposed to remain in the open space parcels. The cluster lot option is an option that is permitted by right in the zoning code. The cluster lot option does not grant additional entitlements, but does allow alternative lot sizes and requires open space to be provided on the site. Seen here on the screen are the lot yield calculations showing that the 49-acre site can potentially yield 22 lots. Staff finds that the proposed plan complies with the subdivision regulations as well as the zoning code and all other applicable requirements, and therefore recommends approval of the application with conditions, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, sir. We'll open this item for public hearing, and is the applicant here? Come on up. You have 10 minutes to speak, and you can save 2 minutes of the 10 for rebuttal. Welcome. State your name and address. But you'll have to turn the microphone on, and there's a button. There we go.
Got it. Sorry. Good evening. Joe Haddock, Civil Site Design Group, 2305 Klein Avenue. Thank you for your time this evening. As Logan mentioned, what is before you tonight is a cluster lot development on South Mount Juliet Road. 22 lots, following, the allowable density. No variances requested at this time. As y'all can see on the screen, this property provided a unique opportunity for us in dealing with both Metro, Nashville, and Wilson County on the development. We spent a lot of time on the front end of this, talking interagency, fire department, Public Works on both Metro and the Wilson County side to make sure everybody was able to work together. We have all that resolved. Would like to add that the portion of the development on the Wilson County side has already been approved, same stage as before you tonight. And we would request your consideration for approval, and I can answer any questions y'all may have, and I would reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal.
All right, thank you, and we'll do that. We'll reserve that 2 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak in support of the project? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, y'all come on up, and you got 2 minutes, and if you could state your name and address for the record, we appreciate you coming in.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Jerry Dunham, and I live at 6120 South Mount Juliet Road. And I'd just like to start off that we haven't had any meetings as far is with the people wanting to do this as to what's going on. I'm concerned with the land around. It's very rocky, and my property is right there. I'm the square at the top left. I'm concerned with the land. The wildlife is abundant. That's going to be disrupted. But as far as will there be dynamiting for the rock to be removed? Some of my other concerns is the traffic on southbound Juliet Road is already extreme. It's everybody's shortcut from the backside of Couchville by the maps up there. And this is going to add to that. I don't really know what else to say. We got a lot of people that want to talk, but my main concern is about the wildlife, the land, and the removal of the rocks, and concerning the structure of my house. I know nothing as far as anybody representing us to give us more information. So with that said, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Judy Yanks, and I live right next door to where all these things are going to be happening. Our concern is safety, privacy, noise, and traffic, and how we raise our kids and our farm. We have animals on the farm. We have cattle. We have chickens and all kinds of critters out there. So that's going to be a lot on the animals and a lot on us. We raised 4 kids in there in our land that we did not have to worry about their safety, that they wander around out there and they have all the times that they need to play. I have 4 grandkids that come in along. I don't think that my grandkids gonna have the privacies and the safety like my children have. And those are my concerns, that we moved there for family safety. And with all these people moving in, we don't know who's coming in and who's going out. And our safety, our livelihood is going to be changed forever for that. And I'm not sure how when you put your family out there, you want to protect your family. We just want to protect our family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Come on up.
If I had known we could ask for 5 minutes, I would have, because I'm very emotional
well-
about this, but nobody has communicated anything with us.
Ma'am, hold on 1 second.
My name is Tina Waynick Bolden. I'm an original property owner and residence at 6134 South Mount Juliet Road. When we built there in 1987, you could not build on a plot, a tract of land that was 5 acres or less, because there's so much bedrock and so much limestone out there. We had to purchase over 5 acres to be able to build there, which we did. At that time in 87, at the costs then, it cost us $5,000 in dynamite just to blast the hole for the septic tank, an additional $2,000 to blast for the fill lines. The rock that was brought out of there was the size of sofas, as big as this table. It cost us an additional $2,000 to have that rock hauled away. Now, I understand the step system that they're using in the developments today that bring a little bit of rock up, and I've got an understanding of that, but it's still going to require blasting. It's solid rock, solid limestone out there. Hearing the others that have been here tonight, it's extremely discouraging and disappointing that they've had council representation. We've heard about meetings that we have begged and pleaded for and have fallen on deaf ears. And Mr. Elliott knows that we've asked for this. He knows that we've asked for it to be not put on consent until after we could have those meetings and voice some concerns and get some answers, but they've been falling on deaf ears. I finally did hear back from our council representative today, and what I did hear was, I don't think I've taken that to the community yet. Wasn't even sure if she had done it yet. And I responded and reassured her that no, she had not, because we were walking in here blind. We have had no information on this. The first contact was November 8th, and here we are 3 months later, and it's on consent, and we've had no communication with anybody. We plead and beg with you, do not pass this until we've had the opportunity to ask those questions and have our concerns addressed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your time.
And just as a clarification, we allow everyone 2 minutes. The only time we allow 5 minutes is for a neighborhood representative like a president or whoever is speaking for it. And they have to request that before the meeting. And I try to give as much leeway.
I understand.
Okay.
And I appreciate that, but I did know that one gentleman was granted that tonight after the effect. And I didn't even know you could request, or we could have had our representative here to request that. But again, no communication, so we
Thank you.
didn't know we could do it.
All right, come on up.
How you doing? I'm Jessica Hawkins. I'm a current resident at 6134
Well,
South.
hold on. We have to get everything on record. So
Sorry.
You have to
I'm
speak.
just ready to speak. I've been here a while.
No, I know. If you'll do it in the microphone. Say that
Yes, sir.
again.
Jessica Hawkins. I live at 6134 South Mount Juliet Road. It's actually in your proposal as my house being the marker as to where you can put these other houses. The concerns that I have are safety. You know, they've spoke with the public safety is what they've said. I myself am a first responder. We have developments like this in my community that I work in. Our response time for this, to come to my house, emergency response is 8 minutes. That's 8 minutes if somebody is having a heart attack. Can they last that 8 minutes? No, most of the time they can't. Okay, another thing that they have talked about is our foundations. What is all this blasting going to do to our foundations? What is this going to do to our houses? What is this going to do to our quality of life out there? We've been out here on farmland. This is not a residential neighborhood area out there. This is strict farmland. They have animals. I have animals, okay? This is not, we don't want this. There's one entry point on South Mount Juliet Road. That entry point that they're trying to put in is in a blind curve. South Mount Juliet Road is 35 miles per hour. This morning I left for work at 4:45. I got passed by somebody doing 65 miles per hour plus. We've got no police response out there controlling the speed. You've got this blind curve that you're going to put this neighborhood in. How many accidents is that going to cause? There's also an issue with flooding. Okay, it's proposed there's no flooding issues. This right here is my front yard every time it rains. This is my front yard. This right here.
And you have to address the chair, don't you?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you like me to bring it up there?
No, you can. We'll give it to the staff.
Okay, and this is also my driveway every time it rains. Okay, I don't know how to do this. I don't have a representative explaining all of this to me. I am just a citizen, a taxpayer, pleading with you to not approve this. This is going to kill our land. This is going to kill us and our quality of life. This is farmland. It has always been farmland. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Welcome.
My name is Andy Yang. I work for the city of Smyrna. I live in there 2006. And it's private for my 4 kids. They could walk down the road, catch a bus. I don't need to be down the road for my children. You put all this house in there, I hate grandchildren. It's not safe for my kids. And I had animal. I had my sewer, my water line run to my roads, 0.9 miles to my house. It got cracks all my water line. And it's not cheap to put water line there, 0.9 miles to my house. And then this plane is on the yacht put in here. I had no idea. My house right beside here. They do all this. I had no idea. That's only that she gave it to me that I know. What they try to hide this from me because my property line, this property line is draw the same line. They try to hide from me. I don't know nothing about it until she told me. So I thank you for y'all listen to these, study, and not approve for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, seeing no one, 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I think I failed to mention earlier that we agree with staff's comments, conditions, and recommendation for approval, and that we're following the allowable density of the lot, just utilizing the cluster provision. I would like to add, traffic-related, we have coordinated with NDOT. You'll see the plan does propose a southbound left turn lane into the development with some road improvements across the frontage of the site. Blasting, we're going to follow all applicable regulations, state, federal. It was mentioned the site will be utilizing a step system on the Wilson County side. We've coordinated with Metro Sewer to release the Metro side from their sewer service district to utilize all the sewer treatment on the Wilson County side. And just an emergency response, I know one thing to point out, Wilson County is currently in process of constructing a new emergency management station on South Mount Juliet Road, just north of this site. Now, that being said, even though we're talking the Davidson County side, part of the coordination I mentioned earlier was the fire marshals. Both of them said technically it would be either Davidson or Wilson. They both have assured me if they get a call, they're coming, right? So that was part of that ongoing coordination on the front end with the department agencies. So appreciate your time and your consideration of our request tonight.
Thank you. And seeing that the council member is not here, seeing no one else wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Commissioner Sims, you want to go first?
Yes, sir. First of all, I really want to thank you guys for coming out and staying here for so long just to be heard. I have a question, and I just may have missed this in the last couple of months. Does the state still govern our ability to respond to subdivisions, or what's our relationship to the state oversight of anything we do here?
Thank you for asking that question, because I'm anxious to ensure that those who have come and testified today and the commission can understand our role, which is a little bit different than when we review zone changes. So when we review zone changes, we are looking at increasing entitlements and we're advising council. Unlike zone changes, this is a subdivision where we're just looking at the division of property, and state law governs the commission's review of subdivisions, and the commission is required to lay out standards for that subdivision review, including the placement of lots, the placement of streets, and the like. And so we know that this is a rural policy area, and so we have rural guidelines that we've developed to ensure the division of property. One thing I want to say, and I've sensed the frustration within the community and sometimes the commission on this point. So often the frustration is actually an issue of zoning. I heard comments that this is farmland, but the zoning that's already entitled today, that it's a council decision, is residential. And so we follow the residential subdivision reviews. That decision has already been made, and it's been residential zoning since 2009. And so I only suggest that because I think it's important to understand where the regulations come from and the constraints that the commission has. And last thing, Commissioner Sims, thank you for your patience as I answer the question. We essentially we are required to follow the subdivision regulations as they're laid out. And so if the commission were to identify an area where this doesn't meet the subregs, then that's something that's important to look at. But generally, the review tends to be more administrative and less policy-based, where things like character and context would certainly be a greater factor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That helps a lot. I am concerned that they haven't had any ability to respond to this at all. And I think something that's going to be this kind of, even though it's probably something we have to do because of state regs, to not have any feedback or any education about it just feels to me like this is not okay. And so I would really like to see us defer it, at least until they can have a conversation with the people who are going to be truly impacted with something like this. So.
Mr. Sims, I appreciate that feedback, and I wonder, there are certain requirements that, again, comes from state law about how far we can defer a case, and so can the staff let us know where we are in that timeline? Because I hear the concern here. I don't want us to approve it mistakenly because we didn't hear the case. So Lisa, can you tell us where we are on that?
Sure. So the state law, or Tennessee Code annotated, and the state law regulating the power that they give to communities in relation to subdivision regulations says that from the time that an item is appeared on your agenda, and it has been on the agenda, but it was not ready at that point because it did not have all approvals. And so this is the first time it's appearing on the agenda with all approvals. And so the clock would essentially start today. The rule says that if you all do not make a recommendation within 60 days, then it is deemed approved.
Okay, then I think that's kind of where we need to do. Thank you for that clarification too. And those are the only two questions I have. So.
Commissioner Henley.
Commissioner Sims essentially stole my cheat sheet for this one. I do just want it to be clear, and I think it'd be good for the community to identify that a community engagement or a meeting is not required for this process as well. I know that, Lucy, you gave a great explanation for all that, but I think that's one clarification we should also make in terms of what is or is not required as part of the process.
It is not required.
With that, I'm inclined to agree with my fellow commissioner for a deferral for that to be voluntarily considered by the applicant.
Councilman.
Thank you to Commissioner Sims for asking really good questions, and to staff and legal counsel and Director Kemp for answering those. I think for the community, from the council standpoint, this is not like a zoning bill that does require council approval, and so folks can file a subdivision regulation, and it doesn't require a council member to sign the legislation. And I know that may sound kind of vague, but just want to let people know that sometimes someone files a subdivision regulation, and sometimes the first that we know about it is it's on this agenda, because it's not legislation for a zone change that we have to initiate on council. So it's very plausible to me that your council member may not have had a lot of information about this in advance. That it could be different, but just want to say that that is plausible. But having said that, I think that there are I think a lot of very reasonable questions about blasting. We get a lot of that even in town. There are good legal responses and other responses about how blasting is handled and how surveys are done for properties in a pre-existing condition and a post-condition, so you can capture any potential damages that happen. There is a process for handling that. But I think that a deferral just to make sure that the applicants provide that information to you, and that your council member can be aware of that and hopefully attend that meeting, I think would be beneficial in this case, and at least answer some of those questions, and then we can kind of consider this again. But and Director Kemp, I really also appreciate you bringing up the zoning issue. I'm not necessarily a fan of downzonings per se, but sometimes, like I say, with a lot subdivision like this is happening within existing zoning. And so if this is a thing, if folks wanted to have a conversation with the council member and planning staff about different base zoning for this area, that might also be an appropriate time to do it. It wouldn't apply to this particular property, but if that's something that the community is interested in for this particular area of the neighborhood, of the community, that is how you would have that conversation, is to say, what does the community expect to see there, and how do we ensure that happens through the zoning process, and how do you get your other neighboring property owners on board for that, because you would need those property owners to support that as well. But I think a deferral, if for no other reason than to just make sure that questions are answered, is well advised.
Thank you, Councilman. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I do understand, subdivision regulation because of our role, and, typically council members does not have any role regarding subdivision regulation. However, I think it is always a good idea as a council member becoming the bridge to the community and, development team, so everybody will be on the same page and understand what's coming next to you. So for that reason, I do have lots of questions and, concerns on this particular subdivision, but I will reserve those to next time because I too agree to have defer and then have opportunity for the community to meet and talk and discuss. And if Council Lady can initiate that meeting, that would be great.
Commissioner Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
if there's anything technically that we would want the staff to be looking at, it would be helpful if you wanted to share any of the general questions now, or just send us a note. That way we can make sure that we come well prepared to the next meeting and the event. I just put that out there. So comments are welcome at any time.
Commissioner Haynes.
So applicant, you've heard this body talk about engagement and transparency. Are you guys open to a 2-meeting deferral to have a meeting with the council person and with the neighborhood?
Yes, we're open to the deferral to meet with the residents. We too have reached out to the council person, or the developer has, and I don't believe he was able to obtain a response either. I don't want to speak. I haven't been able to talk to him today. Yes, would it be possible to do a 1-meeting deferral? I know they're up against there's some deadlines here.
We have to publish our staff reports on Friday of next week. If it was a 1 meeting, it just simply doesn't really, I think, allow enough time for scheduling of a meeting.
So applicant, I would strongly encourage a 2-meeting deferral. You need to really work hard on having a meeting with the neighborhood, preferably with the council person. If not, go meet with the neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll move for a 2-meeting deferral.
That's a proper motion, and we have a second. Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor of 2-meeting deferral, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you, everyone, for coming down. We really appreciate it, and I know it's a long night, but everybody, we legally have to and tried really hard to let everyone speak and say their piece. So, all right. So under other business, historic.
No report this evening, Chair.
No report. All right. Parks, Commissioner Haynes, no report. Executive Committee, we don't have a report either, except we're working on a date for a workshop. That'll be forthcoming. So watch your communication. And then, Director, do you have anything?
Work session will cover the new housing team that we're putting together at planning, and really broadly more for Metro, overall height modifications downtown, and then I wanted to give you an update on our work program and the projects that we have in the pipeline and what's coming up, so that you can be well apprised of our activities.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman, anything at the council?
Councilmember Gamble spoke earlier about the resolution she has. I know we're all looking forward to having a discussion with staff at the Planning and Zoning Committee, I think on Monday. At least it's a preview of that. Just appreciate staff working with us to be responsive to that and even to take additional requests. But look forward to that conversation.
All right. So next meeting is February 24th. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Thank y'all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov